Max raises a camera to his eye, the lens gleaming in the sunlight as he snaps a photo with casual precision. He stands massive in blue overalls, completely unfazed by the tension crackling around him. The Princess Knight freezes in her golden armor, mouth agape in shock as she realizes she's been caught off guard. The pink-haired maid stumbles back, eyes wide with disbelief at the absurdity unfolding before them. The retired demon of the maxed-out village stands tall against a backdrop of green hills and a distant church. The pink-haired maid smiles brightly, basket in hand, while the massive beastman strides forward in blue overalls. He carries the blonde knight on his back as if she were weightless. A small girl with blue hair holds a teddy bear at his feet, eyes wide with wonder. The boy in green turns back with a grin, the village church rising behind them in the warmth of the sun. The road ahead is marked by steel and fury. The Princess Knight speaks before the demon, setting the stage for war. Then the holy sword exists to fight evil, its purpose clear. The maid is very, very angry, a fire that will not be quenched. A small feast turns into a big scheme, weaving secrets in the shadows. A silent uproar rises in the dark forest, unseen but felt. Finally, sword in hand, the girl cries, tears falling on the blade. The chapter opens with a title card declaring the Princess Knight speaks before the demon. A thunderous crash shatters the silence, shaking the cliffs. A colossal beast roars, its voice sending birds scattering into the sky. The earth shakes under its massive steps, stomping through the trees and sending deer fleeing in terror. Amidst the swirling dust, the Princess Knight stands ready, sword drawn. The magic circle ignites with a thunderous boom, the seal purge activating in a flash of light. The Princess Knight's blade glows, forged to repel evil, the star given in the night sky burning within its edge. Spirits surge as the demon roars, his voice shaking the air, promising the blade shall burn bright to guide all mankind. The knight screams, "Take this," as the sacred punishment lands. The demon grunts in pain, muscles clenched against the holy force. The ground rumbles beneath the Princess Knight as she stands firm, her oath blazing on the edge of her blade. The Princess Knight screams, pouring every ounce of strength into the final push of the spell. The swirling magic dissipates into the air with a soft hiss. She plants her sword into the earth, the metal clinking against the stone as she holds her ground. A long exhale escapes her lips, the tension finally breaking. The maid claps her hands, reaching out to steady her, and she turns to find the maid watching her. Clapping rings out, sharp and sudden. "My goodness, I'm impressed." The demon leans back, hat brim casting a shadow over a wide, knowing grin. "Splendid work, Princess Albria." She turns away, chin lifting in defiance. "Don't call me that. I'm a knight," he bows, the movement fluid and mocking. "Oh, pardon me," then the tone shifts. Incidentally, his voice drops smooth as silk. "Are you aware of a frightening demon living in a remote village?" The maid perks up, eyes snapping wide. "There's a demon. Then it's my knightly duty to take down that demon and defend the peace," the Princess Knight declares, her voice ringing with absolute conviction. A sharp grin spreads across the demon's face as he listens. "That's exactly right, Princess," he agrees, his tone encouraging. The maid beside him gapes, stunned by the ease with which he accepts her accusation. She turns on her heel, striding forward with purpose. "I'm off to protect the peace of our world," she shouts, marching toward the horizon. "To the remote village," she adds, leaving nothing to chance. The demon watches her go, his voice dropping to a quiet murmur. "Do be careful." Sunlight spills over the tiled roofs of the village, birds scattering across the sky. Down the cobblestone path, the maid and the Princess Knight walk side by side. "Good morning, lovely weather today," birds chirp in the morning chorus nearby. Inside, the demon leans against the window frame, watching the world wake up. It's almost time, the sound of footsteps echoes in the quiet room. A sharp knock raps against the wood, the sound echoing in the quiet house. "Master," the voice calls out, followed by the reminder that it is time to get up. Silence answers from the other side of the door. The maid stands there, fist raised, her expression shifting from expectation to confusion. "Master," she tries again, louder this time. She peers through the crack in the door, but nothing moves. A question mark hovers over her head as she tilts her face, eyes wide. Pushing the door open with a creak, she leans inside, her voice dropping to a concerned whisper. "The sun is already up. Are you awake?" Yes." The syllable breaks the silence, trembling on the maid's lips as she steps into the room. Her eyes widen, the morning light failing to reach the shadows that have gathered. A towering figure looms in the darkness, horns curving like scythes against the wall. The demon stands silent and vast, a mountain of menace that swallows the space around her. The maid bows her head, small and insignificant beneath the weight of his presence, trapped in the wake of his awakening. The maid yanks the door open, shouting for her master to wake up. "Answer me if you're awake," she demands, eyes wide with impatience. The beastman beside her groans, rubbing his face as he stretches. "Oh," he complains, apologizing to the maid. I know. "Sorry, Yodo," he claims the spring breeze is too tempting to resist. The demon finally stirs, yawning deeply as he looks over the scene. "There you go again," he sighs, noting it's time for work. He warns the beastman not to stretch his wings inside the house. Max savors the stew, marveling at the dwarven quality and chimera beef. The maid tugs at the demon, urging him to hurry up. She reminds him of the request from Lady Makress to fix her pot, and how she wants to eat the stew tonight. The demon sits at the table, the clink of cutlery signaling the meal is finally beginning. Outside, the maid yells at Max to get up already. He grumbles that he just needs to fix a hole in his back. He snaps his fingers, sparks flying as he declares it's time to begin. The fire roars to life, heat radiating in waves. He focuses his gaze, eyes narrowing behind his glasses. With tongs in hand, he lifts the pot from the fire, satisfied that the preparation is complete. That should do it. He sprinkles powder over the rim, adding just enough for forge welding. A sheet of alloy seals the crack tight, and he taps it into place. Then comes the final blow. He raises the hammer, striking the metal with a sharp clang. Sparks fly as the hammer strikes the metal, the rhythm of heat and force driving the repair forward. The demon exhales, a satisfied grin behind his glasses as he mutters his approval. He lifts the repaired pot, the crack vanished beneath the alloy. "That ought to do it." "Deep pots are always tough," the dwarf notes as he holds the repaired vessel. An umbrella snaps shut with a sharp flap, and Max groans that sitting for so long isn't good for his back. The dwarf adds that dwarves only use rare ores, so their wares are high quality. Daltorian from next door arrives, greeting the Duke and suggesting a break for some tea. The Duke recognizes her, and the kids peeking over the fence hear him agree that he's at a good stopping point. They cheer that they can play now that he's done working. The afternoon sun warms the courtyard as the demon sits at a table surrounded by the village children, enjoying a feast of fruit and tea. Max sits nearby, a girl with cat ears resting her hands on his shoulders. "I feel bad always getting gifts from you," Max crunches on food. "Delicious," a blonde girl sips tea, shaking her head. "Oh no, I could never eat all this by myself." The girl with twin tails sits on the demon's shoulders, beaming. "Besides, you're the father of our country." The demon looks flustered, his glasses reflecting the light. "I never know how to respond to that. The one who founded the country was King Bailega. I simply helped him out. I gave up my title long ago." A girl with glasses smiles beside them. "You're too modest." The girl with twin tails gasps as her teacup tips over. Liquid flies through the air with a sharp whoosh, splashing across the courtyard. A boy screams, drenched in the sudden deluge. Daltorian sips her drink calmly, thanking the girl before warning her to be careful. The scene widens to the cobblestone street of Mont in the Kingdom of Bailega, a place where almost everyone has mastered a skill or invented something remarkable. For example, this farmer, the man with glasses, blinks, caught in the middle of a revelation. He pauses unsure, but the weight of his past hangs heavy. He is said to have slain 1,000 men as the former commander of a mercenary group. And this housewife, the blonde woman gasps, her eyes widening. She is a hero who saved an elven village from a great fire, commanding water spirits to rise. And this old lady, the matriarch laughs, a deep knowing sound echoing in the room. She is a spy who knows all about the world's dark underbelly. And this young woman in the shadows. It is Daltorian in her youths. She founded an intelligence agency in the royal capital. Daltorian sets her cup down, the memory surfacing from a recent errand. She mentions overhearing something while picking up Manju, her expression turning serious as she reveals the third prince is quite ill. Max freezes, the realization hitting him hard. The prince is the king's successor and he's still so young. It could be life-threatening. Daltorian confirms the young heir has been unwell for a while now. Max leans back, the tension easing from his shoulders as he insists there won't be a struggle over succession. The girl nearby nods, trusting the beastman implicitly, stating that if anyone's word can be taken, it's his. The masked bard sighs, adjusting his hat with a weary hand. I was worried we'd have to deal with that bard again. Max laughs, the sound rumbling deep in his chest. Oh ho ho ho, Max tilts his head, eyes narrowing with curiosity. A good kid, huh? The child beside him points a small finger, eyes bright. His prank went a little too far last time. The child pauses, tilting their head. But he's a good kid at heart. You mean Gilmius? The pink-haired maid snaps her basket shut, the sound sharp against the afternoon air. All right, master. Break time's over, she steps forward, hands on her hips. Always quick to slack off, I see. The pink-haired maid snaps her basket shut, the sharp sound cutting through the afternoon air. All right, master. Break time's over. She steps forward, hands on her hips, her glare sharp enough to wake the dead. Always quick to slack off, I see. Max groans, his body slumped in reluctant comfort. I wanted to relax a little longer. The maid doesn't blink, her voice firm as iron. Absolutely not. Once you stop, you never get started again. She grabs the repaired pot from the table. I'll take the pot. It's time to work the fields. She turns, tossing a woven basket toward the beastman. Here's your basket. I assume the children are going with you. Max catches it, his expression shifting from grumpiness to determination. Right, thanks, Yodo. The maid pulls a handful of earplugs from her pocket, holding them up with a bright smile. I prepared several pairs of earplugs for you all. Max takes them, his voice warm with gratitude. Right, thanks, Yodo. He turns to the cluster of village children waiting nearby. Come on, kids. Help me out and I'll give you a reward. The children erupt in cheers, their voices ringing out like bells. Yay, they rush forward, eager to help the retired demon get back to work. Excitement surges as the children swarm around Max and the demon, their energy spilling over the courtyard before they march across the wooden bridge. They reach the sign marking the farm duty list, the weight of the day settling on the beastman's shoulders. Max demands order, calling for them to line up and confirm their earplugs are in place. Once everyone has their earplugs in, we can begin. He scans the list, voice sharp. Let's see, a child shouts back, mine are in. Max strains, pulling at the heavy line. Hup, tug, or the work begins. Two children watch, frozen in surprise. The demon bursts from the hedge with a sudden pop, holding a weed. A child screams, face contorted in sheer shock, the sound tearing through the field as the world seems to shake. Max lifts a wriggling mandrake, his grin wide as he notes the harvest is lively this year. Good, he exclaims, though the plants wilt and flop in his grip. The village children swarm with excitement, their cat ears twitching as one boy pumps his fist to shout they'll harvest the rest too. A girl adds a playful meow to the chorus. Max watches them work, his gaze drifting to the demon sitting with wings spread wide behind the line. The retired demon simply nods, murmuring good. He adds that everything is full of energy. Max pauses, tilting his head in confusion at the strange satisfaction radiating from the demon. The children huddle around a picture book, the girl with glasses exclaiming over the find. Let's see, they begin to read. Once upon a time, the land overflowed with magic, and demons gathered in large numbers to harness it. A leader united them, forging a country under the demon lord. They lived quietly, avoiding conflict. But greed changed everything. Demons are free money. Humans discovered their value, declared them evil, and invaded their land. A merchant smiles, offering a polite pleasure doing business. But the reality is a slaughter. Demons weren't taken as slaves, they were killed and cut into pieces to be sold as magic ingredients. To repel the greed that lay at the root of mankind, the demon lord formed an army. At first, it was so one-sided it could hardly be called a war. However, this is a righteous war. We must reclaim our lost peace. All the hatred and fightings. The humans started this war. I'll never forgive them. Kill them, and regain our dignities. We shall humiliate the humans. It's made the demon lord resolve to burn the world down. The boy and girl laugh in the field, the boy remarking that their lord would be shocked to see the world now. A figure muses that all is washed away by the flow of time. The children sit together, declaring there are no more demons, humans, or demi-humans. They are all just people. The village is as happy as can be, a lovely sight. Suddenly Mill looks up, confused by something she sees. Max turns to her, asking what's wrong and if something happened. The spell snaps, breaking the silence that had held the air, and Duke realizes his mistake. Oh, my apologies. I forgot I cast silence. Before he can finish the thought, Mill bursts into the scene, her cat ears twitching with panic. Meow. It's an emergency. She scrambles across the ground, crawling toward the bearded man who sits relaxed on a rock with a teddy bear at his side. It's an emergency. Just come quick, Duke blinks, completely missing the urgency. Did somebody drop their earplugs? I should have some spares. Mill yells back. No, the village children swarm around, shouting Duke. The twin-tailed girl looks up, eyes wide. What happened? Duke leans forward, his expression shifting from confusion to concern. All right. What happened? The camera closes in on his face, eyes widening in shock as the reality of the situation finally lands. A woman in heavy armor stumbles through the crops, muscles bulging beneath the plate, eyes swirling with dizziness. Is she a princess? Or maybe a knight? Duke tilts his head, a confused meow escaping him, while Mill narrows her eyes and declares she looks bratty for royalty. Mill points at the stumbling woman, her ears twitching with alarm. Duke. I think she's a thief. Duke squints at the heavy armor, his confusion deepening as he spots the crest on the pauldron. He leans in closer, eyes widening. She's a member of the royal family. The realization hits hard. Why would they come out here? The woman sways, her face pale, the air around her crackling with residual magic. Duke sighs, his shoulders slumping. This is bound to be trouble, but he can't ignore her. But I suppose we can't just leave her here. He glances at the mandrake nearby, the ghostly plant hovering in the air. That explains things. He deduces she must have pulled one up and been hit by its shriek. Good grief, Duke turns to Mill, his expression firm. Mill, go on ahead and let the church know. He gestures toward the village. Inform the other villagers too. Mill salutes, her tail flicking with urgency. Got it, she dashes off into the fields, shouting a sharp meow as she runs. Duke watches her go, then turns back to the fallen knight, ready to deal with the fallout. Mill sprints through the air, her paws pounding the ground in a frantic rhythm as she screams an emergency. She bursts through the church doors, breathless and panting. Inside, a hand grips a pocket watch tightly against the backdrop of the stone building, the metal clinking with a sharp slam. She calls out, "Father." Her voice echoes as she spots the figure standing before a statue of a winged demon. She shouts the name, Father Blutgang. Her shoulders drop and she lets out a relieved breath. Inside the quiet church, Blut stands motionless before the stone statue of a winged angel, the light filtering through the stained glass behind him. A hand reaches out casually from the side, asking what's up. Blut squints behind his glasses, his expression shifting to confusion as he asks, Kitty. Duke. Over here, the shout cuts through the street, drawing Duke's attention. Inside the clinic, the Princess Knight lies on a table, barely conscious. Here she is, a voice announces, thanking Blut for his help. Max stands over her, holding a white cloth. Blut squints behind his glasses, a puzzled frown creasing his brow. Max lifts the cloth, asking, a handkerchief. The view snaps to the knight's face, she's gagging violently, tongue lolling out, eyes squeezed shut in sheer distress. She was hard to look at, so I covered her up. It wasn't this bad at first, Max says, holding the cloth away from the gagging woman. Oh yeah, I think I'll put it back. He tucks the cloth back over her face, hiding the spectacle once more. Looks like she's well off, but getting done in by a mandrake is a stupid way to go. Blut suspects she's a member of the royal family, wondering why she'd come all the way out here alone. Maybe something happened in the royal capital. Hello? Is this connected to the third prince? Apparently the third prince is quite ill. The village kids and Mill gape at the unconscious knight, marveling at the custom magic armor and the engraved circle. This is impressive work, they exclaim. Max grabs Duke by the shoulder, his sunglasses gleaming as he snaps, "Where do you think you're looking, old man?" He glances back at the knight on the table, muttering, "I can tell she's got a nice rack even through her armor." "She's not bad," another villager chimes in from behind, laughing, "Not as good as Porian's though." Duke bristles, pointing a finger at Max. "You're the dirty old man here. Hurry up and treat her." Max scratches his head, brushing it off. "Yeah, maybe I ought to change jobs." Max snaps the camera, demanding Duke hold the unconscious knight still for a moment. He needs a clear angle on the girl's neck, and he's in a rush. Duke adjusts his grip, asking if this works, while Mill watches with wide eyes. The knight stirs, crying out in pain as he touches her. Max confirms the position is perfect, then reaches for a strand of hair. He presses on, focused, the sound of metal against the air cutting through the room. Max snips the strand with a sharp, decisive cut, the sound slicing through the room. Duke yells out in shock, his hands flailing as he realizes what just happened. The knight jolts awake, screaming in confusion and pain as she thrashes against the table. Max holds up the hair, declaring it done with a satisfied smirk. Max declares the knight is just fine and that she should wake up in an hour or so. He instructs Duke to lend a hand drying the mandrakes until she wakes, and tells him to grab one of the roots. Duke looks at the former master monk and remarks that he should have expected as much from him. The afternoon sun warms the village church. Max hands out snacks to the gathered children, telling them to take them with them. He turns to Duke and offers a rare compliment, calling him a nice guy despite the demon lord's face on him. Duke announces the work is done, his voice carrying satisfaction. Mill hands Duke a basket, telling him to take it along. The kids cheer for the snacks, eager to eat without rushing. Duke looks on, realizing none of them fear him. He feels truly blessed by the warmth of the village. The kids on the church wall chatter about honesty, warning that it might get them taken advantage of someday. One of them grins, teasing that the children are a hell of a lot cuter than Max's mean-looking mug. Max turns his back, muttering that they're one to talk. He shifts his stance, a low hum, escaping him as he processes the comment. "You got that right," he admits, standing tall with his hands in his pockets. The priest standing nearby shakes his head, noting that Max could have used a better upbringing. He points out that Max looks more like a gang leader than a priest. Max spots movement, his voice dropping low as he says, "I saw you." His eyes narrow into a sharp glare. The unconscious knight stirs on the ground, breathing heavily as she wakes up. She looks up, her voice trembling as she recognizes him. "Are yours?" The princess knight lunges forward, her blade flashing through the air with a sharp asterisk shing as she swings it down. Her eyes are wide with shock and recognition, her mouth open in a gasp as she shouts, "Demon Lord." The impact of her swing is heavy, the force of the blow shaking the ground beneath her. Below her, a figure with wild, spiky hair and a terrified expression looks up, sweat dripping down his face as he stammers, "Demon Lord." He blinks in confusion, his eyes wide with disbelief, clearly not expecting her to recognize him so suddenly. The knight's armor gleams as she holds her position, her weapon poised mid-swing, the tension in the air thick with the weight of the revelation. The princess knight lunges forward, blade flashing through the air as she screams, "I saw you, Demon Lord." Her swing lands with a thunderous impact, shaking the ground beneath her. Max stands frozen, his glasses glinting as he mutters, "Demon Lord." Duke, the winged beastman beside him, yells in confusion, "What?" Max tilts his head, a thoughtful hum, escaping him as he watches Duke fidget nervously. The children behind them turn their heads, eyes wide with the same shock. Max points a finger at Duke, his tone cutting through the tension. No. She's talking about you, Duke. Duke points to himself, his expression twisting into disbelief. I thought my lord had revived. He blinks, the realization hitting him like a physical blow. The air hangs heavy with the weight of the accusation, Duke's panic rising as the knight's blade hovers just above him. Duke freezes, the accusation hanging heavy in the air. Noble knight, he whispers. Max cuts in, his voice steady. I've long since left that life behind. Duke's eyes widen, the realization hitting him like a physical blow. Understanding, he gasps. Oh, Max tries to de-escalate. Calm down for just a moment, you misunderstand, but Albria refuses to listen. Her face twists into a scowl. I won't be fooled, Albria see through your lies. Duke holds up a large shield, squinting at the ghostly plant spirits hovering nearby. The mandrakes, he asks, voice tight. Two translucent figures drift forward, their hollow eyes accusing. One hisses that his crimes end here, while the other declares he's been producing illicit goods. Duke scrambles through a basket, the sound of rustling fabric filling the air as he tries to hide the evidence. The princess knight steps between them, finger raised sharply. Now hold on just a second, Duke freezes, a panicked squeak escaping his throat. Duke holds up a crumpled piece of paper, the sound of rustling paper echoing as he tries to prove his innocence. Look, we have permission, he insists, his voice tight. This is an official license. With seals from both the king and the lord, Albria doesn't buy it. Fight me like the demon you are, she shouts, her blade raised high. You think that forgery will fool me? The princess knight steps back, her expression softening just a fraction as she sighs. I understand where you're coming from. But don't you think you're being a tad rude? Albria pauses, her sword still raised, and tries to reason with the situation. I get your enthusiasm, but would you mind listening in to us for a second, young lady? She gestures to the scene, asking for a moment of calm. Max steps in, explaining the beastman's plight to the knight. His back gives him trouble, and his memory's only getting worse. Don't worry about it, Duke. The children huddle close, comforting the trembling Duke as he sniffles. It's okay, they murmur. Max grins, his glasses catching the light. Keep picking on him and he might just cry. Albria cuts through the moment, her voice booming. The silence. You must be a gangster, she points her blade, her eyes blazing with conviction. What do you hope to gain by working with a demon? Max freezes, the accusation hitting him like a physical blow. Gangster, he stammers, dropping his hand as the weight of the title lands on him. Duke leans back, scratching his head as he mutters to Max, say blood. He sighs, asking if all youths are this narrow-minded. Max adjusts his glasses, replying that she's in a league of her own and he can't keep up with her intensity. Albria steps forward, her eyes narrowing as she asks if they're often told they need to listen more. She demands to know if Max used magic to see her past, her voice trembling with shock as she asks how he could possibly know that. With a roar, Albria declares the time for talk is over and charges forward, her boots slamming into the ground. Max stammers that he did nothing of the sort, but the knight's blade is already descending. The village boy points a finger and screams that they use forbidden magic and make illicit deals with gangsters. Mill gasps, repeating the word gangster in shock. Duke clutches his head in despair, crying out that this makes them evil and that he gives up. Albria swings her blade down with a roar, declaring it is her duty as Knight of the West to exterminate them. The sword glows bright as she unleashes the seal purge. Duke freezes, his eyes wide as the blade descends, a strangled WHA, tearing from his throat. The sword crashes into the earth with a deafening boom, the force rippling outward. The village children recoil, the girl with cat ears gasping, meow. Whoa, as the ground shakes violently. Buildings tremble under the weight of the strike, the air filled with the sound of rumbling stone. Albria's declaration rings out over the destruction, her voice fierce. My blade was forged to repel evil, she continues, the holy power crackling around her, the star I was given in the night sky. A pillar of holy light erupts from Albria's blade as she screams, shall burn bright to guide all mankind. The ground shudders with a deep rumble. Her eyes blaze with conviction as she channels the power of her oath, shouting, "Spirits, light the edge of my blade with the flames of our oath." The air crackles with divine energy, ready to purge the evil before her. A pillar of holy light erupts from the earth, tearing through the air with a deafening zoom as the blade's power surges. Duke looks up at the glowing circle hovering above, his mind reeling from the sheer intensity. A magic sword. Max stumbles back, his glasses slipping as panic sets in. Whoa, hey Duke, this might be a problem. He wipes the sweat from his brow, the retired demon suddenly feeling very small against the knight's divine wrath. Albria raises her holy sword high, the blade burning with a light that refuses to fade. The mana surges, building and building without end. Duke stumbles back, clutching his chest as the pressure hits him, a sharp ow tearing from his throat. He feels the weight of the spell, the ouch vibrating through his bones. Max steps in front of the children, his voice cutting through the tension. "You kids need to stand back." Duke stares at the knight, his mind racing through the implications. "This is bad." She's using herself as a link between the earth and the western stars. Was she granted the blessing of a cardinal direction? She's one of the kingdom's top knights. Duke shouts from the right side of the page, his voice cracking with recognition. "HRM. That's the royal family's blade." "I told them sword boost was dangerous magic." Max stumbles back, his glasses slipping as the words hit him. Did I just hear the name of a forbidden technique? Or am I crazy? The beastman turns to the children huddled behind him, his expression hardening. "You heard correctly. Get behind me and don't move, kids." The girl with cat ears and the others nod, murmuring, "Oh, okay." Duke whips back toward the glowing knight, his wings flaring. "Hey, enough of this." "That's someone's house behind you." The village roofs tremble under the holy energy, the stone cracking as the blast widens. "Are you trying to blow the whole town away? Take a look around." Albria screams that they won't get away with this, her voice cracking with fury as she accuses them of taking hostages. Duke clutches the children close, tears streaming down his face as he sniffles, wondering if he really looks that scary. He admits he was feeling more confident because the children like him, but Max snaps at him that now is not the time to cry. Max sighs, realizing the situation is pointless, and asks Duke what they should do. Albria turns her back on them, declaring she'll never heed the words of a villain, then shouts for the girl to knock it off already. The lengthy incantation finally ends. Duke marvels at the speed, wondering how long it has been since he saw a cast that fast. Max stands frozen, the shock of the moment hitting him hard. Albria demands no more dawdling, her blade ready to strike. Duke warns that her mana is running amok, the power surging uncontrollably. Max hopes it was just a bad joke, his voice trembling with dread. Duke shouts there is no time left. He grabs Max, asking him to take care of it blunt. The retired demon steps forward into the shadows, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. Duke grips a charm, his resolve wavering. "I sure can," but he hesitates. Max moves before he can finish. A blur of motion tears through the space, a sharp hiss cutting the air as a foot strikes. Fingers clamp onto the knight's wrist, the impact driving forward with a deafening crack. But the power surging through Max's veins is terrifying. He stares at the glowing blade, his eyes narrowing. I might crush her insides if I hit the wrong spot. The technique he's about to unleash is nothing short of legendary. Oh, a dragon spirit technique. Max's eyes flare with fierce resolve. If he's going to take her head on, he declares, this is the only way. A blur of motion tears through the air, a sharp whoosh cutting the space as his foot strikes. The impact lands with a deafening bam, driving forward with terrifying force. A massive heel slams into the earth, lightning arcing from the impact. Max drives through the strike, stance locked tight and screams, the roar tearing from his throat. The shockwave explodes outward, shattering the cobblestones beneath Albria. She stands frozen in the center of the blast, the ground cracking around her boots. Albria grits her teeth, the strain etched into every line of her face. Max stands with eyes closed, utterly calm. A girl nearby gasps, eyes wide with shock. Albria roars, refusing to yield. I will not falter. A massive shockwave explodes outward, shaking the ground beneath her boots. Duke scrambles to protect them, shouting, "Con shield." This is bad, as magical energy crackles around him. Yet even as the ward forms, the beastman pauses, tilting his head with a bewildered hem. A massive thud echoes as Max slams his body into the path of the holy sword, absorbing the impact with a stance locked tight against the divine wrath. Villagers nearby grip their weapons, eyes wide as they watch the clash unfold. An old man with a beard and hat sighs deeply, rubbing his temples as he mutters, "Oh dear. What awful timing." Nearby, a boy with spiky hair shouts out in confusion, "Duke, what's happening?" While the pink-haired maid gasps in shock, her eyes trembling with the weight of the scene. "What's with those odd weapons?" A villager with a spear stares, eyes wide, as a man with a mustache and a girl with a shield gasp in shock. A dark-haired villager grimaces, shouting in panic. Max rubs his temples in weary resignation, face-palming as he mutters, "I knew this was a village of brigands." "Give me a break," Duke shouts to the crowd, trying to keep order. "Everyone's. We've got this under control." A massive boom shakes the scene as the chaos erupts. Albria's voice cuts through the roaring storm, declaring the compass points due west. Lightning tears through the sky as she claims she is one with heaven and earth. The final words of the incantation tear from her throat, the unifying blade executing the will of the divine. The village is swallowed by the thunderous boom, the foundations shaking as buildings crumble under the weight of the divine wrath. The boy with spiky hair screams that she's seriously trying to cut them down, panic rippling through the crowd as the ground continues to rumble. Albria plunges from the sky, a streak of light and fury roaring, "Here I come," as the holy energy crackles around her. Max shoves the terrified children aside, his voice cutting through the chaos as he orders them to get out of here before the sword lands. Duke stares up, the realization hitting him like a physical blow, as he whispers the name of the attack. "Magic sword," the crowd freezes, eyes wide with terror as the light builds in the sky. Then the scream tears from Albria's throat, a primal roar that shakes the air as the holy blade ignites with divine wrath. The air splits with a deafening whoosh as her magic sword whizzes past. The boy with spiky hair flinches, eyes wide with terror, his body bracing against the shockwave. Fear grips him as the ground shakes beneath his feet, the divine wrath showing no mercy in its unrelenting path. The spiky-haired villager shouts a warning into the fray, his voice cutting through the noise. Albria freezes, eyes widening as she realizes the trajectory of the incoming blow. "He's aiming right for my stomach." The old man lunges forward, a wicked grin on his face as he declares a secret technique. "I'll buy you some candy or something later, so bear with it." The strike lands and Albria screams in defiance, "I won't be defeated." "Ugh, sacred punishment." Tears from Albria's throat as the holy blade descends, light flaring against the dark sky. Max meets the strike head-on, his fist driving upward with a thunderous phantom dragon's roar. The clash erupts into a storm of light and force, the air trembling under the weight of their opposing wills. The holy sword crashes down, only to meet a wall of flesh and bone. Max drives his fist upward, locking the blade against his defense. A sharp metallic ring echoes as the impact sends shockwaves through the air. Albria hangs suspended in the air, shock rippling across her face as the divine strike shatters against his unyielding stance. The ground beneath Max fractures under the force, but he does not budge. Debris rains down from the sky, chiming like tiny bells against the stone roofs as the smoke clears. The villagers blink, utterly baffled by the silence that follows the impact. "Wha," one kid gasps, clutching a teddy bear. Another boy sweats, staring into the smoke with a bewildered "huh." Albria stands amidst the dust, her holy sword still intact in her grip. The blade trembles in her hands as she looks at Max, then down at the weapon itself. "What's the meaning of this?" she screams. "My sword is made of orichalconia, the hardest metal in the world." Duke scratches his head, claiming innocence. "Oh boy. That wasn't me." Albria stares in disbelief at her unbroken blade. "This isn't possible." Duke steps forward, his tone shifting to menace. "You just pissed off someone real scary." A nearby figure flinches, eyes widening in terror. A new voice cuts through the tension from the shadows. I was wondering what all the commotion was. A hand snatches the spinning holy sword out of the air. Okay. A low rumble vibrates through the air as the maid's fury boils over, her grip tightening on the holy blade until the metal groans. Do you have any idea what the hell you just pointed at my master? Her voice cracks like thunder, the air trembling around her. Do you? The threat hangs heavy in the dust. The maid stands amidst the dust, her grip on the holy sword tightening until the metal groans under her fury. Drop it, the command cracks like thunder, shaking the air around her. She stares down at the blade, her eyes burning with a dark, terrifying power. The villagers watch in paralyzed horror, the silence heavy with dread. A boy whispers, "Whoa, scary." Another murmurs, "Poor thing." The crowd feels the weight of her rage, the air thick with the threat of violence. Albria trembles, her voice shaking as she realizes the danger she's in. She was so young, someone whispers. She's in for it now. The maid's glare pierces through the dust, her anger boiling over as she prepares to unleash her wrath. The villagers turn to leave, their conversation casual as they head home. "All right, let's go home," one says while the other notes, "Yodo's here now." Duke waves them off, calling out, "See you tomorrow, Duke." Max watches them go, his expression sharp as he asks, "Sure you don't want to stop, Yodo?" The maid stands nearby, her aura darkening with every passing second. "Kill," the air seems to scream around her. She's super pissed, Duke sighs, rubbing his head. "Oh, I suppose." The maid turns, her voice cutting through the tension. "Hey, Yodo." The air shatters with a deafening crash as the maid unleashes a torrent of dark energy, her fury exploding outward in a blinding flash. Albria flinches on the sidelines, eyes wide with terror as the shockwave ripples through the dust. Down below, Yodo slumps in defeat, the realization settling in that reason has no place here. "This is hopeless," he mutters, his voice heavy with resignation. "She isn't listening at all." He waves a hand in the air, giving up the fight. "Never mind." "I asked you," the maid's glare burns through the dust, eyes locked with lethal intent. Albria stumbles back, a confused "huh" escaping her lips. The maid roars, her voice tearing through the air, "I asked you what the hell." "You pointed at master." The holy sword slams down with a deafening bam, the shockwave rattling the ground beneath them. Intricate rings of magic flare to life, spinning with lethal precision until the air is choked with glowing runes. Albria screams in confusion, her eyes wide as the magical traps multiply around her, trapping her in a web of light. "What the?" she cries out, but the hum of the spells drowns her voice. The circles tighten, vibrating with a low, menacing growl as the dark energy within them surges. A magical barrage, relentless and inescapable. An eye snaps open in the darkness, the slit pupil widening like a trapdoor slamming shut. The word "open" tears through the silence, and the shadows answer. Dozens of eyes blink into existence in the gloom, surrounding Albria as they grumble with a low, menacing vibration. She freezes, her breath hitching in her throat as a terrified squeak escapes her lips. The pressure of 1,000 watching gazes pins her in place. The maid watches from the shadows, her dark energy manifesting as a swarm of judgment. Albria is no longer just fighting a knight, she is facing the collective wrath of the village itself. The stare burns through the dust, unblinking and heavy. Albria stumbles back, her voice cracking as she screams, "D, don't look at me." A bunch of eyes, she's trapped, surrounded by the collective gaze of the village. Then the maid appears, her face wreathed in a dark glow, a sinister grin cutting through the shadows. Her legs lift into the air, floating silently above the rooftops. The air ripples as she descends, the magical grid on the ground flaring to life. With a deafening thum, the maid crashes down into the square, the shockwave shattering the silence. Silence hangs heavy in the air, but Albria knows better than to trust it. What's going on? It never ends. The village square tears open. Two massive columns of energy scream past the houses, their white light blinding against the stone. Albria scrambles across the cobblestones, dodging the whistling blasts that chase her down like a storm. But the sky opens up. Two colossal serpents coil overhead, their jaws gaping wide, scales shimmering with heat. The maid floats in the center, tiny and terrifying. Flame serpents. Albria grips her sword, realizing this isn't just brute force. Is this summoning magic? It's too late. The words hang in the air, spoken by a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. There's no escape. The maid stands calm amidst the chaos, her power surging without effort. Albria cries out, sweat stinging her eyes. The maid is condensing an incredible amount of mana. The cobblestones shatter as a massive black void opens at her feet, swallowing the light and the hope of survival. The flame serpent's maw snaps shut behind Albria, a deafening VOOM tearing through the air as she sprints for her life. She grits her teeth, a strangled AGH, escaping her throat as the pressure builds. A village child caught in the shockwave is blown backward by the wind, tumbling helplessly. Albria slams into the stone wall, the impact shattering the masonry in a crash that echoes across the square. Albria sprints, boots pounding the cobblestones as dust billows in her wake. A massive serpent head drops into view, jaws unhinged with a hiss. She looks up, eyes widening in sheer terror. Above, she shrieks, the warning lost in the roar of the attack. The beast crashes down, scales whipping through the air, jaws snapping with a sickening crunch. Albria is slammed into the ground, a strangled cry tearing from her throat as the weight of the serpent pins her helpless against the earth. Albria sprints across the tiled roof, boots scraping against the shingles as she flees. Behind her, the scaled body of a massive serpent coils, hissing with a low, menacing sound. Her eyes spiral with panic, sweat beading on her face as the realization hits. Crap, she loses her footing, sliding down the steep incline, crashing into the wall with a deafening impact. The explosion rips through the brickwork, a deafening slam and boom shaking the square as debris scatters. High above, fragments of stone and magic clink against the sky, drifting down like rain. A cough breaks the silence, dust choking the air. The maid lies sprawled on her back amidst the rubble, her dark uniform stark against the gray stones, staring up at the sky with a stunned stillness. Albria collapses nearby, armor clinking as she hits the ground, gasping for breath, her chest heaving with every ragged inhale. She's trapped in the wreckage, the fight draining out of her along with the dust. Albria lies amidst the rubble, her mind reeling from the sheer absurdity of the maid's power. What on earth is her problem? She forces herself up, legs trembling violently as the weight of the battle drags her down. A groan rips from her throat. The floorboards wobble. She grits her teeth, realizing she can't win this fight. I should retreat for now. But a sudden creaking sound halts her resolve. She turns her head, eyes narrowing. Standing calmly in the distance, amidst the pews of the church, the maid waits. Debris rains down as a colossal crash shakes the square. The ground heaves violently, the rumble shaking the foundations beneath Albria's boots. She stumbles, her eyes spiraling in dizziness and sheer disbelief as the chaos swallows her. "WHA?" the cry escapes her lips, a desperate question against the overwhelming power crashing down around her. The village trembles violently, buildings crumbling under the weight of the assault. A colossal serpent crashes down with a deafening boom, carrying the pink-haired maid on its head. Albria screams as her armor fractures under the impact. She grits her teeth, trapped in the crushing weight. The village square is swallowed by the aftermath of the impact, but the sky above holds a new terror. A colossal flame serpent coils through the air, its scales shimmering with heat and power, a massive question mark hovering in the chaos above the destruction. Confusion ripples through the air as the beast's presence dominates the sky, leaving the village trembling beneath its shadow. Albria stares up in disbelief, the sheer scale of the magic overwhelming her senses. Where is she? The ground beneath her feet feels unstable, the world tilting as if reality itself is fracturing under the weight of the maid's power. No way. The realization hits her like a physical blow. She is trapped in a nightmare she cannot escape. Static electricity crackles across the fractured stone, a shimmering dome sealing off the destruction. Max stands beside Yodo, watching the magic settle with calm precision. "Oh, Yodo," he murmurs, acknowledging the technique. She created a dimensional barrier. He tilts his head, the lenses of his glasses reflecting the faint glow. Another dimension. Haven't heard that in a while. The stone church stands untouched by the chaos, safe within the spell's radius. Then there won't be any damage here. Yodo really doesn't hold back, does she? Duke murmurs, staring at the devastation. Max winces, watching the blank-eyed maid standing behind him. That young lady is in for it. Scary. Duke points out they'll need one of Porian's spirit elixirs to handle the aftermath. Let's meet at the Chimera later. Yeah. Duke heads off to fetch the elixir, telling Max to fill Yodo in when she gets back. Max waves him off. Sure. He looks at the shattered roof. Good grief. Until then. Guess I'll fix the roof. The village floats suspended in a void, a pocket dimension sealed off from the world. Albria plummets through the air, armor clattering as she spirals downward. She crashes into the grid-like barrier, trapped inside a cage of magic that glows with containment energy. A deafening slam echoes as she hits the ground, the impact shaking the dust from the floor. She lies sprawled on her back, defeated and breathless, as a voice cuts through the silence. I told you there was no escape. WHA, Albria's breath hitches as the void above shifts. A dark, crushing presence looms in the shadows. The magical barrier shudders, a hairline fracture splitting the light. Albria slams her body against the grid, desperate to break free, but the cracks only widen. Her face contorts in pure panic, a silent scream tearing through her throat as the realization of her entrapment sets in. The air shatters with a deafening crack. Light explodes outward, scattering debris through the void. The holy sword hangs suspended, its intricate design stark against the shockwave. Albria lies motionless on the ground, defeated. Bubbles rise from a maw that should not exist, the pink-haired maid standing revealed as a grotesque monstrosity of armor and shadow. She grips the holy sword tight, a dark tail lashing out with a wet gurgle while heavy boots crush the ground beneath her. Albria looks up, eyes wide with the dawning horror of a trapped animal. The voice that cuts through the silence is cold and final. It's too late to cry. Or beg for your lives. How long are you going to lie there? The command hangs heavy in the air, demanding an answer. Get up, the maid leans down, her gaze piercing through the defeat of the night below. Albria kneels on the grid-like floor, hands clasped tight, trembling in the silence. The maid's hands reach out, fingers splayed as the air rushes past them with a sharp FWOO. A massive slash of sound erupts, whoosh, shaking the void. Albria flinches, her eyes wide with terror as the threat looms over her, the trap closing tighter than before. Albria gasps for air, the heat suffocating her as she clutches the holy sword in front of her face. She can't breathe, the temperature rising until it feels like she's being incinerated. Of course not, she denies, her voice trembling against the rising inferno. The maid's eyes glow with a terrifying intensity, the glare searing into Albria's vision as the threat looms. Let the sight of the hellfire engulfing you sear into your eyes as you pass into the afterlife. The maid stands tall, the weapon pointed down at the trapped knight. You're about to be burned alive. The words hang heavy in the void, sealing Albria's fate as the heat closes in. The maid screams, diving down with a roar that tears through the air. Silence cuts the noise abruptly. Albria stands frozen, thinking. Then confusion breaks through. A massive impact shakes the ground. She stumbles back, sword raised, shock flooding her face. Albria screams that she's had enough toying with her voice cracking against the void. Her eye widens, pupils shrinking to pinpricks of pure shock. A shiver racks her frame as she grits her teeth against the pressure. Her foot slips on the slick surface beneath her. The sword crashes down, metal on metal. It can't be. That's the legendary. A colossal beast looms overhead, its maw agape and eyes burning with primal fury. The ground shakes violently beneath it, the earth groaning under the weight of something ancient and terrible. Albria scrambles back, her breath caught in her throat as she stares up at the monstrosity. The realization hits her like a physical blow. Is evil god of fire. Shall we begin? The question vibrates through the void, shaking the ground beneath the evil god of fire's slumbering weight. Albria stands frozen, hands clasped tight against the impossible reality of her capture. The voice answers her fear, cold and absolute, declaring she stands before the prison gates. It is not a warning but a verdict. You are a sacrifice. The words settle over her like a shroud, sealing her fate as the ancient entity prepares to wake. A deafening crash shakes the void as Albria slams into the floor, her eyes blown wide in pure shock. Her body twists in the air, hair flying up as the weight of the moment drives her down. The verdict lands like a physical blow, sealing the final words, "and a sinner." As a descendant of the first king, the weight of expectation pressed down on her, but the fire in her chest burned brighter. She wanted nothing more than to become a proud knight. The court whispered many opposed the princess becoming a knight, but only her older brother took her seriously. He supported her. He congratulated her. He was the only one who truly saw her. The memory blooms into a wide, desperate grin, a final whisper cutting through the void. Albria. Albria. Albria jolts awake with a sharp scream, her eyes wide with shock. She scrambles back, staring at the man behind her and stuttering that he's the gangster, asking if he's going to torture her. Max turns his back to the camera and calmly notes that she's already awake. Albria panics trying to explain herself, but Max holds up a hand to interrupt. He winces, clutching his head as he mutters that he's got to say something, while Albria sits in the background, clutching her own head in confusion. Albria grips her head, breathless and shaken, marveling at the man who pulled her back from the brink. "You're pretty tough," she mutters, her voice trembling. Max leans back, observing her rapid return to consciousness. "Seems like you've had some intense training," he remarks, acknowledging her resilience. She realizes the elixir did its work, stabilizing her soul and pulling her back from the void so quickly. "Your soul was just stabilized by the elixir. And you're already up," she explains, the shock of her recovery settling in. The tavern hums with quiet chatter. Albria looks around, disoriented, asking where they are. Max answers calmly, the tavern in Mont. Albria sits dazed, confusion swirling around her like smoke. She mutters the words echoing in her head, "Listen up, young lady." "Take a step back." Max cuts through the haze, demanding she try to remember why she's still alive after everything that happened. The memory crashes back in, a shudder running through her as the vision of the prison gates and the verdict of sacrifice and sin floods her mind. The memory surges, a voice commanding the fire of Ammon to come. The silent flame hums. The god's face looms, praising the flickering blaze. A fist clenches, ready to crush injustice. In accordance with the contract, a figure kneels in the dust. The ground rumbles as the pact seals. A fist wreathed in fire erupts from the darkness, screaming "Fireburst Demon Fist," before exploding with a deafening FOOM. The impact sends a shockwave rippling outward, shattering the silence of the tavern. A figure recoils, screaming in agony as the blast tears through the air, while another watches in wide-eyed horror, breath hitching in her throat. "Daimon Flare," the attacker roars, unleashing hellfire that consumes everything in its path. The girl gasps, her voice trembling as she realizes the sheer power of the strike, the heat searing her skin as the dust settles around them. A bead of sweat slides down Albria's temple as she gasps for air, her eye wide and trembling in the aftermath. She rubs her head, voice cracking as she tries to recall the void, stammering that she was somewhere. Max hums thoughtfully in the silence, watching her struggle to stand. He leans forward, voice low and appreciative, noting what an impressive girl she is. Most people would have been out for 2 days after their soul left their body, he observes, the weight of her survival settling between them. Or maybes. The sentence hangs unfinished in the quiet tavern air. The woman in the wide-brimmed hat beams, her confidence radiating as she balances a wooden bucket. "My elixir's just that good," Albria stares, the realization dawning on her. "A dark elf. A witch." "Right you are," the dark elf confirms, her voice smooth against the soft plump of her presence. Albria flushes, her chest giving a nervous boing as she tries to mask her shock by insisting dark elves aren't that unusual. The woman presses on, a plump vibration accompanying her reassurance that she isn't going to eat Albria or anything. Across the table, the elf stands with casual confidence while Albria fumbles for words. "And no, that's not it," Albria stammers, her hands waving nervously. "Your outfit is just a little revealing." The elf simply tells her there is no need to look so surprised. The dark elf looks confused, a question mark hovering near her wide-brimmed hat. Duke barks at her, pointing a finger and demanding she cover up, claiming people are embarrassed to look at her. He calls her outfit a damn floozy dress and insists she put on some clothes. The dark elf pouts, calling him rude father. She retorts that he could at least call it innovative fashion. Then she turns her attention to Albria, drinking from a wooden bucket. She tells the girl she'd better be grateful, admitting she'd never help the royal family if it weren't for the Duke. She threatens Albria that she'd sooner break her down into potion ingredients than help her otherwise. The dark elf Porian leans forward, her wide-brimmed hat casting a shadow as she scolds the large demon behind her. Now, Porians. No threatening our guest." The demon, a hulking mass of fur and horns, holds a bowl of food out to the recovering knight. Albria and grumbles, "Try to get along." "Be nice," Porian laughs, the sound light and mocking, and tells the demon she'd never actually do such a thing. "She's only kidding." She leans in close to the demon's ear, whispering, "Would I?" while the demon sweats nervously. Albria watches the exchange, still weak but alert. Porian turns her attention to the knight, remarking that she had the right idea. "A Miss Knight from wherever," she says, her tone dripping with amusement. She leans back, relaxed and confident, and admits she wouldn't trust a word out of the labyrinth witch's mouth. Albria reaches for the food, a small sound effect marking the moment she takes the spoon. The witch's words hang in the air, a warning disguised as a joke, as the knight realizes the danger she's walking into. Porian's eyes widen, a sharp exhale escaping her lips. "Oh," Albria leans forward, recognition striking like a physical blow. "Labyrinth witch," the woman across the table nods, her voice steady. "That's right," her cloak shifts as she admits the truth. "Used to be the court magician," the tavern goes still. A patron at the edge of the table gasps, his glasses flashing. He shrinks back, muttering, "Yikes." Max steps in, his glare sharp enough to cut glass. "A scene." "Don't make a scene." The words repeat in the air, echoing his command as he holds them all in check. Albria lets out a breath, shoulders dropping as the tension drains from her frame. "Hugh," she steadies her gaze, the panic hardening into focus. "Calm." Across the table, Duke nods once, the confirmation silent but clear. "Right." Albria snaps her attention back to the witch, pointing a finger that cuts through the air. "You're the former court magician, Porian." She lists the crimes like a verdict, the words stacking one after another. "You upset the decorum of the palace, misused a forbidden spell, and then created a labyrinth when you fled." Porian is left exposed in the silence, the weight of the accusation pressing down. Albria leans forward, pointing again with cold precision. "Rumor is you're an immoral witch." Porian leans back with a smirk, calling Albria's accusations a fun mix of fact and fiction. The knight snaps back, insisting she's wrong about the spell, but Porian simply pops a grape into her mouth and admits she never used it. She explains that when she fled, she sealed the magic away instead. Albria stares, realizing the motive was pure spite, and lets out a breathless "wow." The witch beams with delight, shouting that the Duke praised her, while the demon beside her grins along. Albria watches the exchange with a mix of disbelief and irritation, muttering that the story always amazes her, and she should have expected as much from the witch. She narrows her eyes at Porian, hissing that she is an insect. Albria stares, wondering if her sword had just spoken. She blinks, confused by the sudden noise, while Duke looks toward the bar, baffled by the sight of an orc drinking alongside gnomes. He wonders aloud why they would be drinking together, asking if that is an orc over there. The scene resolves as someone explains the orc is Morden from Ogre Produce, drinking with Magicum the woodcarver. They are playing with another wood golem, a sight that leaves Albria baffled. Magicum keeps making them instead of working on the church's statue. Albria gasps, her shock palpable as she asks why. Albria stands stunned in the tavern, her eyes darting around the room as she takes in the scene. A massive beastman with horns sits nearby, muttering about even a devil being present. An older man with glasses leans back, grinning as he calls the atmosphere a gangster vibe. A woman in a wide-brimmed hat smiles softly, noting there's a witch here. Albria asks why, her voice trembling with confusion. The beastman tells her to take a moment to clear her head and look around to really take it all in. A wooden bucket clunks onto the table, the sound echoing in the quiet space. The woman in the hat laughs, telling Albria she exaggerates. The beastman leans forward, his expression serious, and declares there are no devils here. The tavern hums with life around them, everyone full of joy, a stark contrast to the night's shock. Duke points a finger straight at Albria, the command sharp enough to cut through the tavern noise. "Except for you," Max leans in, glasses catching the light as he tries to smooth things over. "Anyway, that's just how things are, young lady. I don't know who told you otherwise." Outside, the quiet village stretches out, rooftops and a church tower standing silent against the darkening sky. But this here's a peaceful village. There's nobody for a royal knight to save. In fact, Duke's hand gestures again, the secret slipping out. His Majesty the King secretly vacations here sometimes. Albria's jaw drops, shock rippling through her. "He does." Albria stammers, doubt clawing at her throat as she protests, but that bard said. The tavern patrons chime in, their voices steady. "He sure does, and the truth of this village. Very few people know." A heavy silence falls. Max stands with his back to them, pointing a finger that demands attention. Albria lunges, seizing the bard by the arm, her eyes sharp. "Miss Knight," he stammers, but she presses him. "Would you mind telling us that bard's name?" The bard freezes, sweat dripping down his face. "WH, what's wrong?" The maid flashes a blinding smile, promising she won't turn her blade on him again while she keeps a tight grip on his collar. "You have nothing to fear," she beams, though the bard trembles in her hold. Albria leans in, her stare cutting through the air, demanding now the name. Sweat drips down the bard's face as the pressure mounts. "Out with it," he looks down, fiddling with his tie, and whispers the truth. "He's my brother's friend, his name is Gilmius." A shout rings out, "I knew it," as the room erupts. The large beastman laughs, a deep groan shaking the air, while the maid looks around with a confused huh. The girl beside her slumps over, defeated. Two girls nearby start gossiping, their voices rising over the chatter. "That con man's." Again, one exclaims. "I bet he's getting material for a story." The other agrees, "That moron just had to bring us more trouble." One of them asks, "Con man?" in disbelief, while the other insists it must be true. The tavern buzzes with the revelation that the bard is nothing but a fraud. The maid offers a sympathetic smile, her voice softening as she tells the knight she understands the sting of being tricked. "Ah, Miss Knight, you have my sympathy." "That asshole," she pauses, then adds, "but please don't let it get you down. You're not the one at fault." Across the table, a burly patron throws his head back, laughing loudly at the revelation. "What a fathers." Of course it was him. The Duke leans in, his glasses reflecting the tavern light as he offers blunt advice. "You've been bested. Best to eat and forget about it. You've got a ways to go, kiddo." He takes a swig from his bottle, his grin widening. "You young ladies, you got played for a fool. But your head needs work. You're good with a sword." Albria freezes, the realization settling heavy in her chest. "Played for a fool. Me?" Albria realizes the truth of the lie, the pieces clicking together as she recalls the bard's words. "I'm sure he told you there was a devil living here." The beastman finishes the sentence, his tone flat. "And that you'd become a great hero. If you defeated it." Albria snaps back to reality, her shock turning into anger as she demands to know how they could possibly know. "How did you know?" The beastman shrugs, dismissing the bard as a simple con artist. "Well, it's just how that idiot does things." The maid steps in, her explanation cutting through the tension. "He gets you riled up and sends you into danger. Then tails you with invisibility magic. All to get material for his stories." Albria stands there, the realization settling in her chest. "But no matters." Yodo wraps his massive arms around Albria, pulling her into a hug that swallows her shock. "Don't worry about it," he rumbles, his voice a steady anchor. "All is forgiven. It's behind us now." The maid looks up, eyes wide. "Although, Master, I just cast isolation magic." Yodo pats her head, a rare softness in his grip. "Good job," the maid beams up at him. "You work fast, Yodo." She takes a long drink from her mug, the liquid disappearing in a gulp. Now, Yodo turns his back to the room, his massive frame commanding the silence. "You heard her, everyone's. Someone needs to inform Somerset the Hunter." The maid's voice cuts in, sharp and urgent. "So don't let your guards down. That bard is skilled at concealment magic." A sudden slam rattles the tavern, sending Albria flinching back with a sharp cry. Outside the door, the priest hears the noise and wonders what's happening. Inside, Yodo leans toward Duke, starting a new topic. His gaze drifts back to the priest, a thoughtful murmur escaping him about the man outside. The bard crouches behind a tree, his voice trembling as he mutters to himself about how easily he was played for a fool, though he admits the knight is good with a sword. A sharp gasp escapes him as he realizes the sound has been cut off, the isolation magic of Yodo sealing the area. He stands atop the hill overlooking the village, the dark silhouette of the church tower looming in the distance, and watches the town with a satisfied smirk. The plan is mostly complete, he thinks, the pieces falling into place perfectly. All that remains now is to turn this mess into a good story. The fairy drifts away, wings fluttering as she offers a final thank you. This concludes our temporary contract. The witch watches her go, eyes closed in a satisfied smile as the fairy floats into the night. A small sound signals the fairy's departure, and the witch points a finger upward. "Got it?" She shifts the lyre in her hands, the instrument groaning as her fingers cramp from the strain. Stepping back into the shadows, the witch admits the truth. Sneaking past Yodo was no easy feat. Bargaining with a sylph worked, but she hadn't expected Yoto to ward the whole village against spirits. Her capture magic took a while too. The witch's fingers pluck the lyre strings, but a spell instantly cuts the sound to nothing. She stands in a glowing circle, casting another spell to vanish from sight. Relieved, she sighs as she notes the moon is bright enough to see by, but laments she can't play a song to match it. She worries the noise might draw out the ninjas. With a final exhale, she sprints through the dark forest. A happy ending needs a song, she muses, one of praise and unity that reaches the listener's heart through the melody. Though she wishes the tale had more of a climax, happiness is nothing without a struggle. But knowing the princess, she's bound to cause another scene for her. A sudden jolt snaps her attention. She looks up into the dark canopy where the moon hangs above, the rustle of leaves and the hoot of owls filling the silence. The witch sprints through the dark forest, her cloak billowing as she pushes forward with a deafening zoom. A man in a hat watches her approach with a smirk, his eyes gleaming with amusement. Suddenly, a massive kaboom erupts behind her, shaking the ground. A hand reaches out in confusion, a soft OH. Escaping the speaker. The witch skids to a halt, startled, realizing she's been caught. "He still found me," she whispers, her voice trembling. "For you," the man replies, his tone light. "Huh?" She pauses, recognizing the cadence of his words. "That voice." The man in the hat spins, his voice cracking as he reaches out. "Hey, holy fist," he stammers, forcing a grin. "My friend," the witch recoils, breathless and sharp. "I don't recall being your friend." Smoke clears to reveal a man with wild hair and glasses lunging through the dust, eyes burning with intensity. He roars a name like a challenge. "Gilmias." The Chimera Tavern looms under a dark, cloudy sky, the chapter title declaring a silent uproar in the dark forest. There's one thing still unexplained. The maid stands in the tavern, her expression serious as she recalls the trouble the bard caused previously. She reveals she cast an illusion curse on him. Inside, Yodo and Albria sit at a table, the beastman thinking hard while the knight listens. Yodo murmurs a thoughtful sound. Albria agrees it's a good point. The maid adds that the bard shouldn't be able to enter Mont for 10 years. Night settles over the village, a quiet cluster of homes at the foot of the sacred mountain miles from the capital. Yodo lands in, his voice low and steady. He tells Albria he doubts the bard could ever tale a trained knight like her. Albria frowns, a question mark hanging in the air. Now then, someone says. She asks where Porian went. Suddenly, a shout cuts through the room. Someone calls out to Makris. Another voice chimes in, asking Duke what's up. Albria pauses, realization dawning. Now that you mention it. A heavy thud echoes, shaking the floor. Duke waves enthusiastically from across the room, his horns catching the light as he calls out to someone nearby. A blonde woman joins the shout, urging them over with a grin. A heavy thud echoes through the tavern, shaking the floor. Then the view shifts to a towering elf woman, her muscles defined and imposing. Albria stares up in awe at the sheer scale of the figure before her, her mind racing with the size. The elf offers a drink, her tone light despite the intimidating presence. A companion stands close, hands resting on the elf's waist, as the room waits for the next move. Makris insists she's fine, rubbing her head as the bard and the boy lean in with relief. The boy asks if anyone has seen Porian, the potion seller, and the bard clarifies the question. Makris confirms she slipped out quietly a while ago. In the background, Porian waves a cheerful goodbye, her guilt evident as she vanishes into the shadows. The bard notes she looked mighty guilty, leaving the group to wonder where she's gone. The maid stands in the tavern, her eyes narrowed as she pieces together the puzzle. She's involved, she's sure of it. The bard sighs, rubbing his temples, explaining that she paid her tab, so he didn't give her any trouble. But the maid isn't satisfied. She notes the woman visits the capital a lot, so she must have met him there. Come to think of it, she was wearing an expensive new bracelet. The maid lines in, her voice dropping to a whisper as she reveals the truth. He had her cast an uncurse, then teleport him, all in exchange for the bracelet. The labyrinth witch is known for that sort of magic. The realization hits hard, the pieces clicking into place as the maid's suspicion turns into certainty. Duke points a finger, ordering a drink for himself and the knight. A lantern hangs overhead, the ceiling's shadow stretching as someone agrees it makes sense. At the table, the beastman and the beastman beside him exchange a look. Goodness, one way to make a living, the beastman muses. Albria bows her head, apologizing and thanking them for their generosity. The maid approaches the towering elf Makris, calling out her name. Makris asks for another bowl of beef stew, unable to resist the taste. The bard smiles, calling the maid a sweetheart. Outside, the tavern glows against the night sky, smoke rising from the chimney. Just what is Gilmias after? Night falls over the forest, the moon hanging high above the dark canopy. The man in the hat stands before Gilmias, his voice cutting the silence. What's wrong, Gilmias? He watches Gilmias's reaction, then presses the advantage. Cat got your tongue, he raises a hand, ready to deliver the final blow of words. I'll give you that old cliché line, his eyes narrow. Impossible, Gilmias bristles, his pride stinging under the accusation. He steps forward, cloak swirling, and declares his concealment technique should be flawless. He was taught by Master Daltorian herself. He's proud to say he can even give ninjas the slip. But the man in the hat doesn't blink. He leans in, voice dropping low. Guess you'll have to be humble. Max leans forward, his glasses gleaming with a confident smirk as he lays out his trump card. I'm sure you've heard of my technique, he declares, his voice carrying the weight of authority. It's the dragon spirit, one of the 8 flowers of Iremt. He points a finger, demanding the truth. I'd admit you need more training. Gilmias, the man in the hat, doesn't flinch. I certainly have, he replies, his tone steady. He steps into the lore, his voice painting the picture. Dragons dwell in dark caves, ancient embodiments of salvation. The name comes from the fact. Your fist can break through their hide. Owls hoot in the dark night as Gilmias admits the pursuit is Max's specialty. He realizes Max tracked him using the monk's chakra energy. Gilmias scoffs, calling it a load of crap, but Max stands firm. He insists no magic can hide chakra, snapping his fingers with a confident bingo. Gilmius leans in to explain the technique is ascetic, but Max counters that it is the opposite of Gilmius's magic, doubting the thief could understand. The scarf snaps tight as a fist slams into Gilmius's face, the impact echoing through the night. Max's punch drives forward, his glasses gleaming in the dark as he follows through. Gilmius's eyes widen, shock ripping across his features behind the hat brim. He stumbles back, the force of the blow rattling his frame. "Figures you wouldn't let me do as I please," Gilmius grumbles, his voice strained as he fights to stay standing. Max demands surrender, his voice cutting through the dark as he warns the thief he'll let him off with just a punch if he gives up and spits out the truth. He presses further, asking what Gilmius is plotting this time. The thief smirks, refusing capture. A glowing crystal flashes in his hand with a sharp sound, a mana stone. Gilmius steps back into the shadows, chuckling at the threat. He notes how simple yet powerful that line was, promising to remember it for next time. Gilmius hurls a glowing crystal into the night, declaring he has a happy ending to write. The stone shatters with a violent crack, detonating into a massive boom that blasts Max back. Max yells in surprise, then grits his teeth and curses the distraction. Gilmius vanishes into the shadows, leaping away with a final laugh that he's no good at tag. "Sorry, I don't stand a chance against the Holy Fist," Gilmius shouts back, his grin sharp in the dark. He who flees lives to see another day. He lanes into the run, the wind whipping his scarf. "Or so they say. So flee I shall, but the forest has other plans." Two massive bears snap into view, their eyes fixed on a glowing spirit hovering between them, the shock of the encounter rippling through the trees. Gilmius grins as the massive beasts loom in the dark. "If he can't hide, then he can at least. A pack of giant bears." He plucks the strings of his instrument, the sound ringing out to slow his pursuer down. Magic circles flare above the roaring bears as he casts a charm. "Make sure you protect me," he commands, stepping back as the beasts surge forward. Two colossal bears tear through the trees, jaws unhinged and fangs bared in a thunderous roar. Gilmius doesn't wait to see the impact, sprinting away into the shadows while shouting over the din, "I'm counting on you." Their massive paws slam the ground in a heavy thud that shakes the earth, closing the distance in an instant. Gilmius plucks the strings of his instrument, the twang ringing out as a massive bear roars behind him, magic circles flaring in the dark. He grins, confident that the charm will stall his pursuer. "That should buy me a little time." The ground erupts as a colossal bear paws crashes down. Gilmius sprints into the shadows while Max watches the impact, stunned by the sudden violence. The bears explode outward, blasted into the night sky by a force that turns the darkness into a blinding flash. Crash echoes as the beasts fly helplessly away. Gilmius watches, his hat brim dipping as a single "huh" slips from his lips. He scrambles through the underbrush, shouting over the din that the man chasing him is crazy. His boots kick up leaves, rustle filling the air as he sprints for the shadows. Behind him, Max's grin cuts through the gloom, glasses gleaming. "You know, for a skinny little bean sprout, you're not bad." Gilmius plucks the strings of his instrument, the twang ringing out in the dark. Max bursts through the trees, shouting that Gilmius thinks he's invisible. He grits his teeth, vowing to erase his own presence to catch the thief. He lunges forward with a whoosh, demanding Gilmius surrender. Gilmius freezes, panic rising as he realizes he's been found. He slams a magical barrier down, the KON shield flaring to life just as the impact hits, and he cries out. Gilmius floats above his rune shield, thinking he's safe. "Nice try," Max's voice cuts through the dark. A boot smashes through the intricate magic with a sickening crack. "Double dragon," Gilmius's eyes go wide. "Wha," Max's leg sweeps through the air, a blur of motion. "I'll take." A boot snaps forward, the impact exploding into a blinding cloud of dust and light. The force hammers Gilmius into the trunk of a massive tree, his body sliding down as he slumps against the bark. He lets out a strangled gwah as the world spins. Max stands firm amidst the settling debris, his glow fading but his stance unshaken. "I held back, so quit being all dramatic," he says, voice steady and final. "It's over." Max stands tall over the fallen thief, the forest dark around them. You slipped up at the end. No point in trying to see someone invisible. He leans in, his voice calm. Close your eyes and hone your senses. Then you'll be able to see the unseen. Gilmius grinds his teeth against the tree trunk, the impact of the kick still ringing in his bones. Zerg, that's who you're dealing with here. Max adjusts his stance, his sunglasses reflecting the gloom. Is that why you always wear those sunglasses? Impressive as always, holy fist. Gilmius lands against the tree, breathless but smiling. Max stands firm, hands loose. As always, I mean you no harm. I swear, Gilmius presses his luck. I have a good reason this time. Will you let me off the hook if I beg? Max doesn't flinch. You're a pain in the ass, but I know you're harmless. Your desire to save people is the one thing I respect about you. Gilmius's eyes narrow. Are you trying to play God and right people's lives? Max's voice cuts through the dark. But that greed of yours is no good. Gilmius leans against the tree, his voice dropping to a whisper that carries weight. It's nothing so grand, but he does have his conviction. Every story he tells must have a happy ending, no matter the day and age. No matter the persons. A thrilling life is a wonderful thing. His hand clenches into a fist, the knuckles white against the shadows. Max stands on the other side of the clearing, sunglasses glinting, and lets out a sharp scoff at the boy's earnest rambling. The demon's voice booms through the clearing, cracking the air with a shout that silences the night. You'd make the young lady cry for that. He leans forward, his cracked glasses glinting in the gloom, eyes sharp with judgment. It's been ages since someone had the valor to not fear my fist. That dedication is almost like faith. It's something to be protected. Gilmius slumps against the tree, breathless but grinning, looking up at Max with weary respect. You've got a good eye, holy fist. Max stands firm, his stance unyielding. I completely agree. The demon cuts in, stepping into the light with a weighty pause. However, tears are the essence of a good story, Gilmius declares, leaning back against the tree with a manic grin that stretches wide. He reaches out a hand toward Max, sweat beading on his brow as he presses the advantage with eyes wide and unblinking. Far cheaper than blood, wouldn't you say? He isn't asking for forgiveness. He's offering a trade, justifying the manipulation of lives as a necessary cost for a tale worth telling. A sharp snap cracks the air. And a maiden's hardship. The armored figure holds a rose, eyes closed in serene cruelty. It is the sweetest honey of all, the words hang heavy. That's it, a hand reaches out, fingers closing tight with a grab. Max explodes, his glasses glinting as he roars, I'm gonna beat some sense into you. A deafening bam cracks the air as Gilmius's face meets the fist, the impact shattering the silence of the night. Max drives the punch through the darkness, his stance unyielding as he delivers the blow with intent. Gilmius is sent flying backward, tumbling through the night air as the force of the strike carries him away. Max stands firm, his body glowing with a faint, dangerous light as he watches the aftermath settle. A sharp crack rings out, and Gilmius's eyes go wide with panic. Sweat beads on his skin as he realizes another mana stone has shattered. Another mana stone, he gasps, the shock rippling through him. Max explodes with fury, his glasses glinting as he shouts the truth. He pissed me off on purpose. The realization hits hard, but Gilmius doesn't deny it. Lying back, hands clasped, he offers a trembling apology. Sorry. I'm serious about this. His eye rolls back in his head, the fight draining out of him. The thief slumps forward, defeated, as Max kneels over him in the quiet aftermath. Hypno lies still on the ground, her lips sealed tight by magic. The demon stands over her, a sharp exhale escaping him. He got me, he lights a cigarette, the flame flickering in the night air. Smoke curls up toward the moon as he stares into the distance. I guess I need some more training myself. He slams his mug down hard. Albria breaks down completely, tears streaming down her face as she sobs that she just wanted to be a proud knight. Her composure shatters, the weight of her duty and failure crushing her. while droplets of sweat and tears drip down her uniform. The others watch in stunned silence, Duke and Max looking on with awkward concern as the knight's emotional wall crumbles. Duke explains the girl has had way too much to drink. The maid asks why he enabled her. Max shouts "Me" in confusion. The maid slumps further, hiccups escaping her lips as chatter fills the tavern. She passes out on the table. Someone notes she's out. Morning light spills over the village tower as birds chirp in the distance, the chapter title settling over the scene. Sword in hand, the girl cries. Albria wakes with a violent throb in her skull, a sharp, pounding headache that screams for attention. The house outside hums with quiet life, a soft murmur drifting through the air. Inside, she sits up in bed, dazed and disoriented, her body heavy with the remnants of the night before. She turns her head looking toward the door, confusion clouding her thoughts. Where am I? She asks herself, the question hanging in the quiet room as the pain pulses behind her eyes. Albria wakes with a throbbing skull, the shame of yesterday crashing back in. Right. Yesterday, She clutches her hair, dread pooling in her stomach. The maid greets her calm as ever. Finally awake, Lady Albria. Albria's mind races. Ugh, what have I done? The maid offers breakfast, but the reminder of her humiliation is too much. Albria kicks her legs up in a panic, screaming "Ayeek." The maid jumps back, startled by the sudden outburst. Albria jolts awake with a pounding head, asking if she's a ghost before wincing that she's just a little hurt. She turns to apologize for the outburst, but the maid simply hums in response. The maid introduces herself as Yodo, offering to call her Lady Albria, then immediately corrects herself to say she'd prefer no titles at all. With a bright smile, Yodo asks if Albria prefers being called Princess Albria instead. Then Albria it is, the maid decides, welcoming her to the master's home once again. Outside, the morning bustle fills the air as villagers shout that the Duke is working right now. Yodo offers the room with a casual shrug, insisting it is nothing too special. Albria stammers a hesitant yes in her nightgown, her body trembling as Yodo presses for what she actually wants. When Albria tries to speak, Yodo assumes she needs the bathroom and points down the hall. Albria corrects her, insisting she wasn't asking for the door, and finally forces out the words about yesterday. She asks if Yodo is still mad about the previous night. Yodo tilts her head, turning the question right back on her. Yodo answers with a soft smile, dismissing the worry with a casual shrug. Not particularly. Albria exhales, the tension leaving her shoulders as she realizes they are on the same side. I am Master's sword. You and I share the blame for what happened. It's behind us now. But enough of that. A pile of fresh fabric lands on the bed. Here's a change of clothes. Albria looks at the offering, gratitude softening her features. Thank you. Yodo points toward the door, her tone shifting back to practicality. Anyway, if you don't hurry and eat, I'm going to start cleaning up. Albria gasps, eyes wide with delight. Woow, her gaze locks onto the feast before her. You made all this for me, Yodo answers instantly. Of course, milk splashes into a glass with a soft slosh. You are our guest, Yodo waves a hand toward the spread. Please help yourself, she boasts about the ingredients. Our vegetables are first class, Albria beams. Albria lifts the sandwich, takes a massive bite and freezes as the flavor hits her. Her eyes widen in shock, then she devours the rest with ravenous delight, declaring it the best thing she's ever tasted and asking if Yodo made it herself. She gushes that Yodo is as good as a master chef, but the maid just smiles inwardly, thinking flattery won't get her anywhere. Yet watching the princess's happy face, Yodo notes that she seems happy enough. The empty plate sits before Albria, the meal finished. She offers a quiet thanks for the food, a small smile tugging at her lips as she admits it was great. Across from her, Yodo collects the dishes, the clatter of porcelain echoing in the quiet room. She notes that Albria is nothing like she was yesterday, the maid's tone gentle but firm. Albria bows her head low, the shame of the previous night burning hot on her cheeks. I'm really ashamed. She can't meet the maid's eyes. Yodo hesitates, the fabric of her apron rustling as she shifts her weight. I'm not exactly sure how to ask this. She turns slightly, the question hanging heavy in the air. But are you really the Albria lifts her chin, her gaze steady. Yes, I am. The maid steps forward with a bright smile, dropping a name that shakes the air. I'm Jotun. She clarifies immediately, her full title rolling off her tongue like a secret kept too long. My full name is Jotun, demonic sword of frost. A flash of the weapon itself appears, the destructive sword wielded by Demon Duke Tiafing, its history etched in stone and legend. It was forged by the Duke's creation magic, featured in the Song of Bailega, and once taught the hero swordsmanship alongside the Duke himself. Albria's eyes widen, the weight of the revelation pressing down on her. It's an honor to meet the demonic sword of legend, she breathes, the awe trembling in her voice. But the maid just tilts her head, her expression softening into something gentle. I'm just a maid now, she says, dismissing the glory of the blade. With the world at peace, there's no need for weapons. She offers a warm invitation instead, telling Albria to make herself at home. Morning light spills over the village tower as the scent of cooking breakfast drifts through the air. Duke stirs a pot with a casual rhythm while the church bell chimes in the distance, the sound echoing over the quiet streets. Max catches Albria by the door, his glasses gleaming as he notes her resilience. Already awake, are you? You're quite tough. Albria offers a polite nod, thanking him for the care. She hesitates, then addresses the older man with a respectful title. You, father of the country. Duke cuts her off with a wave of his hand, grinding a blade on a stone wheel. No need for that. It was a long time ago. Albria sits back, the exhaustion of the night finally fading. It's good to be full of energy. Duke waves off the tension with a casual shrug, telling her she can call him the Duke like everyone else since he is retired now and discarded his title long ago. Albria doesn't stop, bowing so low her face nearly touches the floor as she begs for forgiveness. She lists her crimes in a panic, pointing out that she aimed her sword at the country's hero and called him an evil demon. Duke just holds his blade, telling her it's fine and that she's too serious because he wasn't mad in the first place. He says good twice, then beckons her to follow, leaving her confused as the village children shout that he's done working and cheer. On the street corner, the women shake their heads, declaring all the blame lies with that con man. Down the cobblestone path, Duke and Albria walk away from the scene, leaving the aftermath behind. But Albria stops, her eyes widening as she spots a figure tied high atop a roof. That's the royal palace's bard. He's Gilmius, the one who tricked you. Blut captured him yesterday, but when Blut tried to make him talk, he sealed his own lips. What a pains. Clobbered. The revelation hits hard. His accomplice is being punished as well. He had an accomplice. Albria points, demanding to see the proof. The crowd watches with practiced ease, muttering that this is almost a regular event at this point. High above, Gilmius hangs from the roof, cackling that he loves her punishment sales. Porian stands behind her stall, hat brim tilted, shouting that she doesn't want to sell her goods for cheap, even as a sign declares a bargain sale to apologize for endangering the village. Max digs through the wares, pointing out she was hiding elixirs by the dozen, which explains why they were always out of stock. Porian panics, begging him to put them back because their value is still going up, screaming for him to stop. Max holds up a glowing crystal, noting it's a mana stone and apologizing to Porian. She cries out for him to stop, begging him not to make her sell at a loss. A small monster peeks around the corner, grinning as he declares he's here for fertilizer. Two boys nearby cheer, eager to buy up the whole stock while mocking her misfortune. A large customer thanks the labyrinth witch, noting the price is cheaper than usual. Porian shouts at Morden, refusing to let high-quality medicinal fertilizer go for such a low price. Children scatter as she yells at them to go play at the Duke's house instead. The witch wails over her lost profits, a long scream echoing into the sky. Duke and Yodo stand together as the maid comments on Porian's stubborn greed, noting the witch never changes. Duke hands a sheath to a young boy, explaining he made it himself since the payment was already settled. He instructs the child to take it directly to his parents. As Duke turns to leave, a voice calls out from the crowd, "Hey, Mogul." The butcher knife's ready, and Duke waves back with a cheerful smile. He remarks that Sagalga's meat is to die for, promising the boy that next time he visits, they'll serve him the best cut. The boy waves goodbye, grateful that his father can get back to work now, while Duke laughs softly at the exchange. The tower looms in the distance as the question hangs in the air, shall we head back? Albria stumbles over her words, "Duke, what is this all about?" Duke glances back, his glasses gleaming as he offers a casual shrug. "Let's see. You could say it's a hobby of mine." Albria's eyes widen. "A hobby?" Duke chuckles, explaining that he acts like a blacksmith because it's a hobby. Albria stares at him, bewildered. "Yes, you're one of the country's founding fathers. Why are you all the way out here?" A wolf-like villager nods, "No need. I heard all about you from the old lady next door." Albria hesitates. "You said your name was Albria, correct?" "Yes, I'm Duke," interrupts, "indeed. I've always enjoyed making and fixing things. I made that sign." Duke tilts his head, apron straps tight, and asks if he should call her by her full title. Albria flinches on the roof tiles, stammering that he can just call her Albria. Feathers drift down as the weight of her name settles. She received the blessing of the West, the very direction the Demon Lord's army first appeared from, and they even call her the Sword Princess. She admits it with a quiet yes, feeling exposed as he sees right through her. But then she pauses, standing tall in her armor, asking why she is here as a princess knight. "No, let me rephrase that." Albria halts, a sharp jolt of surprise rippling through her. "Why are you in such a hurry?" The wolf-like villager watches silently from the side. Albria folds her arms, the realization settling in. "You really do see through everything." Duke turns slightly, voice low. "What gave it away?" "Well..." Duke pauses, the castle looming behind him as the sun hits the stone. The devil's in their eyes when they're in a rush. Albria's eyes narrow, the accusation cutting through the calm. "And yesterday I saw that devil in your eyes. It was painfully apparent." Under the shade of an umbrella, the wolf villager lines in, demanding answers. "Tell me." Albria turns, her gaze searching the crowd. "What happened?" "You're right," Albria admits, the confession slipping out before she can stop it. She's been frustrated, on edge, her patience worn thin. The glory she claimed for her brother. Just an excuse. She looks down, shame coloring her silence, then admits the truth. She was tricked. The wolf villager watches, grunting softly. It's not simple greed driving her. Duke cuts through the tension, his voice calm. Given her birth, her status, her skill with the blade, renown would have come to her regardless. She's a full-fledged knight. Duke watches her, realizing everything. Her intelligence, the way she turned her sword on him in her impatience. Now that he has had the chance to speak with her calmly, he can tell. She's just like him. He tells her they say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, noting she reminds him of a rambunctious warrior from 1,000 years ago. The wolf villager chuckles, catching Duke's attention. "Duke," Albria shakes her head, insisting it's nothing. But the villager presses, asking why she won't tell him what's on her mind. Albria hesitates, her voice trembling as she admits she isn't sure. Duke leans in, his large frame radiating warmth as he tells her not to worry. This village, he says, is a place for lost people like her. He offers a gentle smile, his eyes crinkling behind the shadow of his ears, telling her she doesn't need to be coherent. It's fine if her words are jumbled. Just try getting them out. Albria looks down, the weight of her confession finally breaking through the surface. "I believed," she says, the words stumbling from her lips. Duke pauses, tilting his head with a soft hum. Albria turns her face away, tears catching the light as the dam finally cracks. Albria's eye narrows, the memory of her conviction sharp. She believed that if she wielded a blade, she could be a knight and protect the kingdom. But the world is at peace. Policies and governance are more important. 3 birds perch on the tiled roof, silent witnesses to the truth. She could have done nothing and lived in luxury. You're absolutely right, Duke acknowledges. But she couldn't accept that. She wasn't satisfied. Being praised without getting hurt or putting in effort. Duke clenches his fists, the sound echoing in the quiet room. Before I am a princess, I am a knight. Albria's voice breaks the silence, the confession raw and trembling. As such, she practiced with a wooden sword every day, driven to become someone capable of facing hardship and protecting the people. Just like the founders of the kingdom, Duke replies, his eyes soft. Just like you. Albria looks away, the weight of the present pressing down. But with the current state of the world, it wasn't meant to be, she admits. Countries settle disputes by talking things out these days. But I can't imagine you want war, Albria adds, her gaze steady despite the tears. It's a difficult issue, Duke murmurs, the silence stretching between them under the shade of the umbrella. The wolf-like villager lines in, his voice cutting through the quiet to dissect her burden. She's a member of the royal family, he says, taught she can't depend on others, forced to act as an example to the people. Albria points upward, her voice trembling as she admits she tried to be perfect. That was how she thought she should carry herself. It was exactly why people resented her. Standing alone in the spotlight, she realizes ordinary people who had to compromise on their ideals couldn't stand the way she stuck to hers. Tears stream down Albria's face as she clutches her chest, muttering about that idiot and how he could treat such a sweet girl this way. She pulls herself together, realizing that if she wants to help here, there is only one thing to do. The wolf-like villager interrupts the moment, calling out to her with a sharp, "Say, knight." The wolf villager speaks over the quiet village, his words cutting through the stillness. You want to become the last line of defense. A towering fortress to protect the people. You swore upon your sword, and came here seeking to prove that. He leans in, his eyes narrowing as he asks the question that hangs in the air. Am I wronged? Albria drops to her knees, the weight of her confession heavy on her shoulders. No, but I see now how foolish I was. You have every right to take my head. She pauses, her mind turning over the truth of his words, a quiet hymn escaping her lips as she accepts the judgment. The villager straightens, a satisfied grin spreading across his face as he stretches his arms wide. Good's good. All right then. The maid dashes past, calling out to Yodo about her apron, but Duke stands firm with a sword in hand. That's how a knight should be, he says, telling her to carry herself with honor. A finger snaps in the air, the sound echoing as Duke insists she has nothing to be ashamed of. But that won't clear the doubt clouding her sword. Albria drops her blade, the metal clattering against the floor. 2 wooden swords lie crossed on the ground. Wooden swords? What for? First you must see the fog clouding your blade. The wolf villager holds his wooden sword steady, his gaze locking onto Albria's. She stands ready, blade in hand, but he doesn't let her hide behind her rank. I doubt many people in the palace can match your swordsmanship. The praise lands heavy, a test rather than a compliment. Then the villager shifts his stance. I may be retired. He swings, the wood cracking through the air with speed that belies his age. A sharp jolt runs through Albria as she braces, her eyes widening in the sudden realization that his retirement isn't the only thing that's ended. The wolf villager raises his wooden blade, declaring he still has enough fight to bring a princess to her senses. Albria bends forward, hand braced against her knee, asking if that's what knights do. Now bring it on. Draw your sword and let us speak through our blades. Albria's eyes shine with renewed fire as she shouts, okay. The spar ends. A gray checkered pattern fills the space. A bold banner announces the next chapter. The Demon Lord's castle is on the hill. To be continued. The maid flashes a bright smile, her hands posed playfully. Max grins fiercely, his glasses gleaming. The villager in a wide-brimmed hat gives a cheerful thumbs up. The bearded man leans forward with a relaxed grin. The words Kunst Gallery stand bold. The spiky-haired character beams with open joy. Albria stands quietly, her expression soft and steady. A girl in a hat and pearls offers a gentle smile. A cat-eared villager holds up a wooden sign declaring the serialization dates for January and February 2022, letting out a cheerful meow. Beside her, the wolf villager chuckles darkly, conjuring a glowing magic circle in his hand as he lets out a wicked laugh. The maid lunges forward with her hands outstretched, vowing that the target won't get away. Albria stands ready with her sword drawn, her eyes narrowing as she shouts that she has finally seen the demon lord. A woman in a witch's hat and pearls leans on the counter, her expression soft but demanding as she tells everyone to be grateful. Beside her, the wolf villager points a finger upward, insisting they've never met before. A boy with spiky hair holds up a wooden sign, announcing the publication date for March 2022. Finally, the maid with spiky hair and a lace top offers a warm invitation, asking if anyone wants another drink. Max roars his demand for surrender, his glasses gleaming with intensity. Beside him, a cheerful girl holds up a wooden sign announcing the serialization runs from April to May 2022. The maid deflects with a playful warning that flattery will get you nowhere, her headpiece bouncing as she speaks. Albria watches the exchange, her expression softening as she admits he really does see through everything. The Chimera Tavern shakes as an explosion rings out in the remote village of Mont. Former heroes leap from their seats, weapons drawn, but the proprietress Makress's voice cuts through the panic, assuring them it's just another failure. At the counter, the old demon blacksmith known as Duke tilts his head in confusion alongside his maid, Yodo. Yodo pouts that she wanted the meat pie today, but Duke wonders aloud how the pot exploded, suspecting an electric shock ran through the lid. Makress emerges from the back, soot smeared across her face, holding an iron lid with a hole burned through it. She explains they forgot to prepare the lightning dragon meat properly, leaving electricity inside. A villager asks if she's all right, noting the sound was bad, but Makress brushes it off. The meat is ruined and expensive, she says, noting that lightning dragon electricity can penetrate armor. The fact she only suffered mild burns after handling such a dangerous ingredient is a testament to her strength as a former hero. She laments the broken pot lid, admitting she really liked it because it was custom-made. Duke leans in, eyes catching the glint of the broken lid. He asks if an iron-loving dwarf made it from rare ore. Makress confirms it's meteoric iron, sourced only from Starfall Valley. The blacksmith's face lights up with curiosity as he examines the damage. He admires the craftsmanship, impressed despite the hole. Makress pleads for a fix, warning that without the pot she'll have to cut the menu in half. Yodo fidgets, her stomach already full of the tavern's food. Duke accepts the request but hesitates. In 2 millennia, he's touched meteoric iron only a handful of times, and magic won't reproduce it. Starfall Valley is far away. Yodo's spirits drop. She asks if it's too difficult. Duke says it's possible with help and asks Yodo to join him tonight. She perks up immediately, asking if they're capturing a falling star. Duke shuts it down. He's going to break one. Midnight hangs heavy over the open ground near the village entrance, where a crowd has gathered in the dark. Duke murmurs that there are certainly a lot of people here. Yodo stands ready beside a large summoning circle. Her evil god of fire emerges from the magic, or at least its hand does, but it gives a thumbs up to signal it's game time. Duke nods, telling her to break the meteor when it gets close. The timing is critical. He claps his hands together, no incantation needed, and a massive magic circle blooms overhead, runes dancing in complex patterns. A bright object illuminates the night sky, a falling star turning into a meteor. Ordinarily, this would be a disaster, but the villagers stand calm. Yodo adjusts the evil god's hand, aiming its index finger at the incoming fireball. Almost there. A little higher. Perfect. Fire mana gathers and condenses around the finger, forming a ball of light so dense it could pierce castle walls. A sphere of light shot upward, piercing the meteor and shattering it into a glittering shower high above the village. The night erupted into fireworks as the crowd cheered at the beautiful display. Duke patted Yodo's head, praising her precision, and she hid a proud smile behind a modest shrug. With a snap of his fingers, the blacksmith summoned a transportation spell, pulling the shattered fragments of the meteor down from the heavens. Yodo marveled that the flying stone looked like common rock, but Duke was already analyzing its structure. He promised to begin the repair work first thing the next morning. By the time a few days had passed, the Chimera Tavern's pot lid was back in place, sturdier than ever. The lid lifted like the iron gate of a fortress to reveal the long-awaited lightning dragon meat pie. Yodo sat at the counter, silently stuffing her cheeks with the feast, her cowlick bouncing with pure delight. Framed portraits hang in a row, capturing the cast in perfect detail. Makris strikes a pose in a witch's hat. Max grins, sunglasses gleaming. Duke stands watchful. Yodo beams, clutching her basket. Albria gazes at the collection. A message hangs in the frame, praising the art that brought them to life. Akinasuke Nishiyama extends a final thank you to the reader for buying Volume 1 of The Retired Demon of the Maxed Out Village. He reflects on the heartwarming tale of the strongest heroes living quietly in a remote village, praising the artist Yusuke Miyachi for breathing life into the world with wonderful character expressions and gestures. The story has only just begun, and he hopes the reader stays with him on this journey. Yusuke Miyachi adds his own thanks for reading Volume 1, noting the research he put into details like the inside of a snake's mouth and how to grip a sword. He credits the original author, character designer, and editorial team. Albria stands ready with her sword, while Yodo smiles beside her, marking the end of this volume. Volume 1 ends, sealing the story of the retired demon within the village walls. The creators sign off, thanking the audience for the journey. The legend of the Maxed Out Village waits for its next chapter. Albria stands tall in the foreground, her sword gleaming at her hip as she smiles with renewed confidence. Max leads the charge in his green tunic, sprinting with boundless energy alongside the cat-eared villager and their friends. Duke soars overhead on his wings, watching over the group as they head toward the distant castle. The legend of the Maxed Out Village continues. The village holds its breath. The legend waits. The legend of the Maxed Out Village continues with Volume 2. Albria stands tall against the village backdrop, her blonde hair catching the light as she grips a wooden training sword. A bead of sweat marks her cheek, but her gaze remains fixed and determined. The story of the retired demon and his friends continues. The legend continues. The Princess Knight must grow stronger. The Demon Lord's castle on the hill rises. Danger approaches the castle. It was no ordinary village. Thus the pact is made. My sword and shield were forged for this purpose. Albria plants her feet, blade raised, and demands a chance to prove herself. Let me show you one of the Blega style's 3 signature moves. Duke stands ready, sword drawn, waiting for the strike. The air crackles as their blades clash, sparks flying in a violent burst. Albria's face twists with fierce determination, her braid whipping through the air as she drives forward. Wyvern break, the attack lands with a thunderous boom, shaking the ground beneath them. The Princess Knight must grow stronger. Albria surges forward, her blade wreathed in crackling lightning as she drives a thunderous strike downward. Duke blinks a sharp huh, escaping his lips as the attack vanishes into thin air. He stands unmoving, weapon in hand, while Albria reels back in shock. He dodged it. By barely moving. She grips her sword tighter, staring at him with newfound respect. I see why they call you Sword Princess, she admits, the title feeling strange on her tongue. Duke offers a weary smile, his fur bristling slightly. People who can do what you just did are hard to come by. The air hums with the aftermath of their clash, a silent acknowledgement of power between them. Duke notes Albria's form is excellent. Yodo chimes in that it surpasses King Bilega's at her age, but catches herself with a cough and a hasty apology. Albria admits she poured everything into that strike, more than she ever had before. Yodo agrees she can tell. The demon laughs, noting the form is exactly like what he passed down to him long ago. He suggests they continue their introductions. Albria stands poised, the blade humming with a sharp rustle. The demon watches, eyes narrowing in intrigue. A thoughtful hum escapes her lips. The demon lines in, intrigued. "Interesting," he murmurs, voice respectful. "I assure you I mean no disrespect. In the Balega school of swordplay. It's called the initiation stance." Albria shifts, lowering the blade to the earth. "The Fool's Guard." Crouching low, she explains that the name doesn't come from the blade's position. All swordplay is said to begin from here. Duke smiles, realizing the weight of the legacy he's witnessing. "I see. So that's his legacy." Albria asks if that's Duke, but the demon dismisses it as nothing. He's fired up, ready to take the bait. He raises his wooden sword, warning that it probably looks like he's about to fire off a magic spell. He swings, but Albria halts him with a sharp command. "Stop right here." The demon pauses, then offers a new approach. "Now then, allow me to give my own introductions." Albria closes her eyes, drawing breath to focus. Her gaze snaps open, locking onto her opponent with a piercing stare. Silence falls over the clearing. Duke raises his wooden sword high, but Albria drives her blade down with all her might. The impact screams through the air, yet the winged knight doesn't flinch. He stands perfectly still, a statue amidst the violence. Albria reels back, shock washing over her. "He's not moving." The maid watches from the sidelines, her voice cutting through the tension. She reveals the truth: the initiation stance is a counter technique. A nervous gulp escapes her throat as the realization settles in. Duke plunges from the sky, sword raised to cleave the earth. "I must sense even the slightest movement," the voice demands, cutting through the tension. A hand clamps down on the wooden hilt, fingers spasming with a violent twitch. Albria's eyes flare wide, pupils dilating as she locks onto the target, refusing to blink. "Here it comes," Albria cries out, eyes locked on the descending blade. Her fingers clamp down on the wooden hilt, the grip audible in the tension. She plots the counter in a heartbeat, parry the oncoming blow, then strike his defenseless shoulder. A roar tears from her throat as she launches the attack. Albria swings her sword with all her might, but the blade passes through empty air with a hollow poof. Shock ripples across her face as she realizes the strike was a lie. It's not real. A hand darts through the gap, cutting the air with a sharp whoosh. Finger sees her wrist in a tight grab, and the sudden force yanks her off balance. She cries out a startled wah, echoing as her world spins. Albria is hurled through the air, her braid whipping wildly as she stares up in shock. A scream tears from her throat, swallowed by the wind as she flies. She crashes into the dirt with a heavy thud, rolling to a stop near the edge of the village. Duke stands nearby, wooden sword in hand, his wings flaring slightly as he laughs triumphantly. "There, that's one. I got you good." A sniffle cuts through the air as the maid wipes a tear from her eye, scolding the master for letting the training get too rough. "Master, no making girls cry." Duke stands tall, offering a sheepish apology to the princess on the ground. "I couldn't help playing around like old times." Albria brushes the tears from her cheeks, forgiving the roughness. "It's all right," Duke's gaze sharpens, focus returning to the spar. "Now shall we continue?" "It's only our second bout." He steps forward, the wood of his sword shifting in his grip. Good, let out everything on your mind." Albria raises her blade, stance firm, resolve hardening in her eyes. "Thank you. I will." Albria sits on the rocky bank, head bowed low. "I lost. I was utterly defeated." She closes her eyes, the weight of the failure pressing down. "Some sword princess I am. All my training has been a joke. What was I even so worked up about?" She collapses onto the ground, staring up at the sky. A silence fills the air, broken only by the chirping of birds and the wind rustling against the distant mountain. The maid and Duke splash and laugh in the river, carefree. Albria watches from the bank. A massive mountain looms, its peak piercing the clouds. Albria sits on the ground, staring up at the height, breathless. It's beautiful. The maid steps in close, clutching a stuffed bear, her expression softening the air between them. I think you're more beautiful, princess. She tilts her head, wondering aloud why Albria wields a blade when she possesses such grace. How come you use a sword? When you're so pretty. Albria looks away, searching for words. She admits she doesn't know how to answer, but the truth is simple. I guess it's because I've loved swords since I was a kid. Albria hugs the stuffed bear with a beaming smile, confessing she likes stuffed animals and dolls just as much as anything else. She nods in agreement that everyone has things they love, finding a quiet connection in the simple truth. She turns to the maid to ask if that's why she carries the bear around, and the maid confirms it, introducing the toy as Coco. The maid hugs the toy close, explaining that while her current collection are hand-me-downs from her mother or gifts from the Duke, she hopes to make one herself someday. When Albria asks why, the maid declares she needs to learn to make clothes too, because it would be sad to give a stuffed animal a body without any clothes to wear. The demon leans forward, grinning with confidence as he puffs out his chest. So I asked the Duke. The maid cradles Coco close, her expression soft but doubtful. Perhaps. You just don't understand clothes well enough. He presses on, eager to help. You want to know how to make clothes for Coco? The maid looks down, cheeks flushing with realization. When I really thought about it, I realized I didn't know anything. But I know all about them, the demon booms, laughing. The maid points at the bear's dress. But I don't know what this is. She traces the fabric with a shy smile. I know about skirts and ribbons. The water splashes and laughter fade into a quiet realization. A voice notes the endless variety of clothes and their shapes, a meow echoing from the cat-eared girl. But the maid cuts through the observation with a blunt admission: she doesn't know any of them. She cradles Coco, her face lighting up with a strange, genuine joy. She marvels at how boys and girls wear different things, and Albria wonders why she is so happy about not knowing things. The maid beams, declaring she wants to know about all asterisk kinds of stuff. She accepts the gap in her knowledge as a mountain of things to learn. Albria stares, speechless, caught off guard by the maid's infectious enthusiasm. The cat-eared girl leaps into the river, arms wide, screaming for play. The group splashes and laughs in the water, carefree and wild. The maid sits on the bank, bare in lap, teasing the princess. It's because you don't know anything, huh? Albria turns, admitting she chose to ignore everything but the sword. No, I willingly averted my eyes from everything else. I'm worse than a child. Right. All I know is the sword. All I ever learned was chivalry. The sky holds the truth, no better or worse. Albria sits, realizing new doors open at any age. The demon leans in with a casual grin, greeting the young lady and admitting he likes the look on her face. He immediately follows up by insisting she stop calling him something specific, reminding her he's retired. Albria sits on the ground with a bucket in her lap, stubbornly calling him Holy Fist anyway. The demon sighs, explaining he's just a priest now, an irresponsible one who drinks and smokes. He tilts his head with a confused hum, unsure why she persists. Albria closes her eyes, smiling softly as she notes that his spirit is much calmer than it was yesterday. The demon leans back with a casual grin, telling Albria he likes her better this way. She blinks, surprised, admitting he's actually listening to her for once. The scene shifts to the village grounds where children splash and play, their laughter echoing as the demon notes they aren't afraid of her anymore. He explains to the maid that Albria is perceptive. She wouldn't come near someone if she sensed malice in their heart. Albria spots a goat-horned girl playing nearby and identifies her as Nido. She catches herself almost calling the demon Holy Father before correcting herself, then looks out toward the towering mountain and wonders exactly what this place is. Just a village way out in the sticks, a voice muses, dismissing the Duke as a local oddity. Not just him, Albria cuts in, her eyes sharp. She sits back, gesturing to the group around her. The Duke, the demon, Porians. No, everyone in this village seems to be a person of note. Porian blinks, his eye patch catching the light. Oh, Albria leans forward, the realization dawning. They aren't just locals, they are famous enough to be in the history books. Everyone here is famous enough to be in the history books. She names the truth, her voice trembling slightly. For example, the owner of the bars. Is the conqueror of the sandstorms Lady Macris, isn't she? Albria continues her list of names, asking if the woodcarver next to the orc was the heretic alchemist, Professor Magicum. Max chimes in with a warning that she is one of the scariest people in the village when you piss her off. The orc smiles, admitting he doesn't blame her for having doubts. Albria looks around in disbelief, asking what all these powerful people are doing in a place like this. The orc sits down heavily and clears the air, explaining that this place is all they have. Wheels clatter over the stones as the orc calls this place a refuge for them. They've walked different paths, he admits, but there is one thing they share. A villager nods, confirming they never asked for anything in return. They sharpen their skills for the sake of the people, pouring everything into their work. And then, the orc's voice drops. Betrayed. Albria cries out, her eyes wide with shock as the weight of the words crushes the air between them. Albria asks if the people ultimately turn on their heroes. She realizes they can't stand to be around others, so they wander from place to place. The orc and a villager explain that an earnest sense of justice and overwhelming power are hard for other people to stomach. The demon adds that heroes who have done their part turn into monsters, regardless of whether they're human or demon. Eventually, they end up here. The wide shot reveals the village nestled against the mountain, the final refuge for these outcasts. Albria's tears well in her eyes as she whispers, "That's so sad." The demon sits beside her, his back to the light, admitting plainly, in the end, we're just a band of outcasts. Yet the picture changes. The villagers are all good people, helping raise the kids and celebrating each other's hard work. They drink and laugh, doing as they please, happy with that simple life. The demon turns back to her, offering a home. Stay here as long as you want. He places a hand on her shoulder, reminding her she's faced the same hardship to get here as the rest of them. Mont Village welcomes you. Albria looks up, the weight lifting, and whispers, "Father." The demon hoists his fishing rod, declaring he's off to do some fishing. He doubles over laughing, muttering that he sounded like a priest for a second and can't have that. Albria watches him go, her eyes closed tight against the tears, a small, relieved smile breaking through. A girl in a white dress steps forward, asking if she's crying. Albria shakes her head, wiping the moisture away, and says it's nothing, just time for lunch. She asks to call the others over. From the shadows under the bridge, a voice calls out that there are sandwiches from Yodo. The kids cheer, the tension finally dissolving into the promise of a meal. Reporting ends. The night view of the village looms, silent and dark. Inside the hall, the news drops. The sixth princess has been found. But the maid admits they couldn't approach her. A voice cuts through the tension, asking why not, this is just a backwater village, isn't it? Albria touches her face, eyes wide as she reveals the truth. The village is surrounded by several layers of magic. The demon leans back, glass in hand, adding the final nail. They've also hidden traps in the vegetation. And that's not all. The village is surrounded by barriers both magical and physical. Doubts creep in once the name of a bard is mentioned. Sounds like this won't be straightforward. What should they do, Commander? It's fine. Stick to the plan. Whatever barrier they have is the work of some retired has-been mage. They're no match for us. Now, the village is suddenly shaken by a massive, stomping impact as the enemy forces mobilize. Gather our troops and activate the golems as planned. The command rings out, followed by a sharp order to inform the runners. A figure clad in armor stands amidst the chaos, his back to the viewer as the night swallows the light. Take the sixth princess's head, he commands, his voice cutting through the darkness. Burn the village. Don't leave a single villager alive. The final order hangs heavy in the air, a chilling decree to return it all to nothing. This is the only way to bring our lord back. The officer's declaration hangs heavy in the air, a desperate plea for resurrection. Beside her, the commander clarifies the ritual's cruel requirement without hesitation. The sacrifice must be the target's closest blood relative, one who is loved deeply. A fist clenches in the shadows, the order distilled to its simplest, most terrifying form, the sixth princess. The soldiers murmur the weight of their treason, admitting they stand against the gods themselves. A hand snaps, fingers discarding prayer amulets for good measure. The blades rise in unison, ready to shatter the last remnants of faith. The old emblem lies shattered in the grass, the faith of the past discarded. A commander's voice cuts through the night, demanding a new pledge. Now swear your oath, my knights. We have no deities. In the shadows, the soldiers tighten their grips. His Highness the Third Prince is our god now. The night before the attack settles over the village, quiet and still. The orc asks if Princess Albria is already asleep. Yes, she was quite tired. She fell asleep shortly after dinner. She needs time to rest. The orc murmurs, good, good. The maid smiles softly, noting that having her watch the children was a good decision. Parents wave their children off into the village streets, a scene of domestic peace that Albria watches with quiet fascination. She realizes there is much to learn from these people who have found their place. The maid confirms the observation, noting it was all part of the plan. The orc laughs from his chair, admitting that watching over the village is simply his hobby. He shifts Albria on his lap while the maid steps in. But you know, master, she says, eyeing the weapon Albria holds, I think her sword is a little too long for her. The orc chuckles, his hand resting on Albria's head. I knew you'd notice, he replies. Correct. Her stature isn't suited to wielding a bastard sword. A sword hangs suspended against the dark, the blade gleaming with a cold light. The demon watches it, thinking she is just emulating King Bilega I, but there is a problem. What she should really be using is, Albria stirs in her sleep, her hair fanned out against the pillow. She wakes to the sound of her own name, her eyes snapping open. My sword, she asks, clutching the blanket. The demon leans in, his voice dropping to a serious tone. Albria, let me be frank. Yes, I was thinking I'd repair it. She replies, her hand moving to the hilt. You're not a good match for this weapon. He says, his words landing like a heavy blow. Albria freezes, her eyes widening in shock as the truth settles in. The orc stands firm, telling Albria there are swords more suitable for her. She sniffles, admitting she's spent half her life with the blade and wonders if she should just give up and be a princess. He snaps back, telling her not to get ahead of herself because he isn't telling her to give up the weapon. A shot of the table reveals a pair of shorter blades resting there. Albria pauses, her eyes widening as she considers the option. She hesitates, but the orc urges her on, telling her not to knock it before she tries it. The orc leans in, his voice firm against the gloom. Don't look so down. I'm not done, he raises a finger, the idea striking him fresh from their bout yesterday. That came to me. You should also use a shield. He steps back, analyzing her stance with a critical eye. You're more like a gladiator than a fencer. When combined with your movements, your range is shorter than a longsword's user's. The maid hesitates, her hands clasped tight. Duke. With all due respect, Albria looks down, the weight of the suggestion settling on her. Short swords are one thing, but shields are even more difficult. Albria insists it's all the more reason she can't do it, admitting the shield is too complicated and requires anticipation she doesn't have. She's been ridiculed for fighting like a wild boar, so she doesn't think she's cut out for it. The demon counters that mastering the shield is about developing the tolerance to accept all, a matter of heart. He tells her there's a kind heart on the other side of her blade, one he can see. Albria stammers, asking if he means a kind heart. He ignores the confusion and tells her to pick a sword first. A hand tightens around a hilt, the steel singing as it clears the scabbard. Albria pauses, chin in hand, weighing the weight of the blade in her mind. Duke watches her selection, a satisfied hum escaping him as he notes she chose the one most similar to her old sword. Albria looks up, eyes wide, realizing he knows her better than she thought. The training shifts instantly. Duke steps forward not with a sword but with a shield strapped to his arm. He tells her she can only learn so much from striking a dummy. He braces himself, the metal gleaming, and invites her to come at him however she likes. He is going to take her blows head-on. Albria swallows her nerves, eyes hardening as she accepts the spar. Then I'll take you up on that. Here I come. She explodes into motion, sword raised high against the blur of speed lines. The ground shakes under her feet as she dashes forward, closing the distance in a single breathless burst. Duke's eye widens, catching the blur before the strike lands. Albria surges forward, wings flaring as her sword screams through the air. Steel slams against the shield with a deafening clang, the force cracking the floor beneath their feet as dust explodes outward. Albria stands stunned, mouth open in confusion. A creaking sound cuts through the air as the maid opens an umbrella, shielding the training ground. Duke steps forward, his praise cutting through the silence. Excellent job. You can make powerful strikes from a greater distance now. Albria sheathes the sword with a sharp snap. Duke holds out a sheath. Here are sheaths. You're welcome to keep that one at your hip. Until your sword is repaired. He shifts his stance, finger raised. Now then, as for your shield. Albria interrupts, pointing toward the horizon. Take a look out there. The maid points toward the distant stone building on the hill, her voice carrying a quiet pride. Do you see that stone building on the hill? That used to be my castle. Albria stammers in shock, her eyes widening as the cat-eared villager laughs maniacally beside her. Oh, your castle. The truth spills out in the shadows of the past. The founder of the country, Manga I, arrived there by mistake and promptly challenged the retired demon Duke Tiefing to a duel. He finally defeated the Duke on his 8th attempt. It was one of the main settings in the Song of Manga. Albria stands stunned, the weight of history settling in. Strangely few people knew of its location. I never would have guessed it was all the way out here. A stone door stands before them, guarding a secret armory hidden by the illusion spell Phantom. Duke offers to adjust a shield or forge a new one from scratch. Albria balks at the generosity, insisting she cannot accept it without paying. The maid laughs it off, telling her it's not free and urging her to come over. Duke invites the kids to tour the castle, promising they can take whatever catches their eye. The children cheer, their excitement spilling into the air. The maid declares the group ready, instructing the children to follow Albria's lead. The kids cheer in unison, their excitement spilling into the air. She nods, approving Albria's decision. Turning to the knight, she presses a small bell charm into her hands. It is an omamori from the Far East, the key required to slip past the phantom spell guarding the castle. She warns Albria not to lose it. Albria accepts the gift with a quiet thank you. The demon Duke offers his final blessing, urging them to find their shield and escort the light of the future. The path to the castle stretches out ahead, a cobblestone road leading toward the stone fortress on the hill. The maid notes that while the roads are well maintained, the children already know where the armory is hidden. She frames the journey as a sightseeing trip, telling them to take it easy. Just as they prepare to move, the maid adds one more thing. She warns the knight not to thoughtlessly touch her siblings if they meet them, instructing her to let them sleep for now. Albria pauses, the word siblings catching her off guard. She stammers in confusion, the question mark hanging in the air as she wonders who exactly she is about to encounter. Albria offers a bright promise to the children, vowing to keep them safe as they run off into the distance. She turns back to Duke, calling out to him as master. He chuckles softly, the sound rippling through the quiet air. He invites her to examine the shield he holds. The metal gleams, a heavy buckler forged from orichalcania. Yet a jagged crack mars its surface, evidence of a blow from an ordinary iron sword. She has earned the title of Sword Princess. Albria might even be better than he thought. The child points toward the stone tower, recognizing the figure within the shadows. Ah, it's Gilmius. The man in the straw hat waves from the field, his hand raised high as the group walks past the orchard. Albria leads the children away from the village, Max watching their backs with a steady gaze. Duke sits on the bench, glasses gleaming as he offers a final wave to the departing knight. The road stretches out toward the hill, where the stone castle stands silent against the sky. The stone fortress looms ahead, swallowing the path as Albria and the children climb the hill. The sheer scale of the place hits them first. "This place is huge," the knight murmurs, her voice barely carrying over the wind. They stand before the massive arched doorway, chains hanging like skeletal fingers, the silence pressing against their ears. Did Bailega I really come here all by himself? The question hangs heavy in the air. The courtyard is unnervingly still, the stone walls echoing nothing but their own footsteps. It's so quiet. Albria stops, sweat beading on her brow as a sudden chill runs down her spine. Her eyes widen, the unease settling deep in her gut. What's this feeling? Albria stands atop the stone fortress, the village sprawled out below like a jewel in the valley. The castle walls frame the view, high and imposing against the distant mountains. She takes it in, the scale of the place settling over her. Beside her, the cat-eared villager leans against the brickwork, grinning as she recalls the Duke's old habits. He used to love this view, she says, the memory of his presence lingering in the stone. Albria nods, the beauty of the landscape striking her despite the tension. The maid's voice cuts through the admiration, reminding her of the defenses. If an intruder tried to breach the walls, they'd be swarmed and fired upon from every angle. It's a fortress built for survival, not just living. Albria feels the weight of the strategy, the village below seeming designed to repel any assault. The wind carries the scent of earth and stone. Suddenly, a shout breaks the quiet. Over here! The cat-eared villager waves from a nearby path, her tail flicking with excitement. Princess! She calls out, drawing Albria's attention away from the view. The knight turns, her expression softening as she spots the call. The path ahead leads deeper into the castle grounds, the journey continuing into the unknown. The massive stone door groans open, revealing a cavernous hall. Albria stands small in the archway, breathless. It's so big. Clacking echoes off the walls, sharp and sudden. A cat-eared villager meows, startling the knight. A throne sits waiting in the shadows. A throne. The villager waves her forward. This way. Albria spots something else in the gloom. Is something over there? Come look, princess. The villager urges. Two children watch from behind, silent observers. Albria's eyes go wide, terror freezing her in place. The hall fills with a low, rhythmic laughter that seems to come from the shadows themselves. Dark silhouettes loom in the archways as the children step forward into the gloom, drawn by the strange sounds. Albria trails behind, her gaze fixed on the figures ahead. Suddenly, a sharp edge intrudes into her vision, gleaming faintly in the dim light. She freezes, her eyes widening as the realization hits her. Weapons, she whispers, the question hanging heavy with sudden dread. The cat-eared villager turns with a playful grin, asking if they know the Song of Bailega. Beside Albria, the boy grins back, confirming that this is exactly what he came to see. The maid taps against the stone wall with a rhythmic sound, pointing out something hidden in the masonry. A close-up reveals a glowing blade in a display case, the demonic sword of Frost Jotun. Finally, a figure with braided hair stands before a massive stone door veiled by a dark illusion, wondering aloud if this is where Yoda was. The dragon tail of ignorance, Barabute. The twin wings of the clear storm, Shuza Mers. The names hang in the air like heavy iron, etched in stark white against the dark brick. Metal rings softly as the weapons settle into view on the wall. Albria freezes, her breath hitching in her throat. Her eyes widen, pupils shrinking as the reality of the armory washes over her. A sharp gulp escapes her lips, the sound echoing in the sudden silence. She stares at the blades, the weight of their legends pressing down on her. The bow of the azurite moon, Belrock, hangs silent against the stone. Next, the stone hammer of ebony waves, Whitehilda, rests heavy in the gloom. Finally, the spiraling tower of the Crimson Flash, Spire Rulumo, completes the trio of legends. Albria stands frozen, the weight of these names pressing down on her like physical blows. And finally, the Fortress of Seclusion, Egmort Ha. The voice introduces the final piece of the puzzle, revealing a massive shield that dominates the hall. Its surface is etched with swirling patterns, framing a figure huddled within the metal itself. Albria stares up at the artifact, her breath catching as the realization settles in. Are these the Duke's legendary demonic armaments? She never would have imagined they were sealed here, the weight of the Duke's power pressing down on the knight as she stands before the fortress of metal. The demonic armaments loom in the shadows, a legend of immense power that keeps them alive only while bound by a fact. The cat-eared villager grins, dismissing the fear. They aren't sealed, she says, it's more like they're sleeping. Soft breathing echoes through the stone hall, the weapons stirring in their slumber. Albria stands frozen, the realization hitting her hard. The weapons are sleeping. With the world at peace, there's no need for weapons, Yodo muses, her voice calm in the stone hall. A gloved hand brushes against a blade leaning against the brick, the metal cold and silent. Maybe the same could be said about knights, she adds, they should be resting too. The cat-eared villager and the blonde child exchange glances, wondering if it'd be for the best if knights didn't draw their swords. Maybe we'd be better off sleeping too, the blonde kid suggests. But a small voice from atop the knight's shoulders breaks the quiet. Princess. Yodo stiffens, turning away with a sharp denial. It's nothing. The group below tilts their heads, asking what she is talking about, princess. The blonde boy leans back, hands behind his head, voice trembling with genuine fear. What if something happens to the kingdom? A nervous meow escapes the cat-eared villager as she laughs it off, trying to brush off the weight of his words. Albria stands silent, her eye widening in the gloom, a bead of sweat tracing her cheek. Then the rhythm changes. Tap, tap, tap. The boy tilts his head, confused by the sound echoing off the stone. Hem, he murmurs, the footsteps growing louder. The boy is crushed in a tight embrace, the word squeeze echoing as he struggles for breath. Two figures spin and run in laughter, twirl and wha. Filling the air. Albria's face fills the frame, eyes soft as she murmurs, "Thank you," before asking, "What's going on?" She pulls back, smiling through tears, admitting she was happy and that his father must be a great man. The boy stands tall, pointing at himself, explaining that in a world fed up with swords, his dad said he was needed. He stammers about his dad being a pragoon in the 40th, but insists he's really strong. The boy's declaration hangs in the air, but the mood shifts instantly as the children rush forward. Hug, the cat-eared villager squeals, tackling the knight in a bear hug that nearly knocks the wind out of her. No fair. Me too, the blonde boy cries, leaping in to join the pile of affection. Albria finds herself buried under a mountain of enthusiastic kids, her face flushed with surprise and warmth as the laughter rings out. Over the scene, a voice cuts through the joy like a blade. You're all the children of heroes. The words land softly but carry weight, spoken by someone watching from the shadows. The perspective snaps away from the huddle to the outside. A figure stands tall against the setting sun, silhouetted against the distant silhouette of the castle. Perfect, the figure murmurs, a smirk curling their lips as they watch the group. In that case, the camera pans to the horizon where the old castle looms. A shadowy figure crouches nearby, whispering to the wind. What? The princess left for the old castle. The realization hits the group like a cold splash. The children of heroes are gone, and the real game is just beginning. An armored commander draws his blade, declaring he'll lead an elite squad to assault the castle, while the rest of his forces burn the village to the ground. Shadows stomp away, heavy boots crushing the earth. Albria turns to the children with a bright smile, urging them to head to the armory before they accidentally wake the sleeping weapons. The massive shield Egmort glows with a soft light, responding with an eager okay. A breach opens in the masonry, a dark vortex swirling with violent energy. Metal shrieks against stone, a deafening clang that vibrates in the bones. The children heave the legendary shield Egmort. Their small hands grip the massive metal fortress, muscles trembling as they lift it upward. Lightning crackles around them, the sleeping weapon finally stirring from its slumber. Danger approaches the castle. A heavy crash shakes the stone. An armored commander pulls hard on a rope near the wall, the mechanism groaning under the strain. Steam hisses around the blade as it's revealed. The blonde boy stares, stunned. "I can't believe you." Yodo hovers within a glowing circle, asking the master if he used the dimensional furnace to fix the sword so fast. She teases him about spoiling Albria. The old blacksmith duke holds up a newly forged sword with a proud grin, telling Yodo that he based its curves on her lovely figure. Yodo sighs deeply, rolling her eyes at the inappropriate comment while the blade gleams in the light. She declares she's had enough of that kind of unpleasant language from Egmort, the massive shield resting nearby. Duke insists the sword is like a younger sister to her, a sentiment that draws a sharp glare from the maid. She glances back at him over her shoulder, her expression darkening as she catches him peeping at her from behind the counter. A red flare screams into the sky, signaling an emergency from Somerset. Albria shouts for the master, her eyes wide with panic as hostiles breach the barrier. The maid and the blacksmith react instantly, the sound of wings flapping filling the air as they scramble to assess the threat. 40-50, they keep coming, the count climbing rapidly. There are probably around 150 of them, swarming toward the village. But the real horror isn't the numbers, it's the direction. Some of them aren't just attacking the village, they're headed straight for the castle. The old blacksmith's face tightens, his eyes narrowing into a cold, hard glare as the weight of the assault settles in. The castle looms on the hill, a silent sentinel against the sky. Down the brick corridor, the cat-eared villager trots alongside the blonde boy, her paws twitching with excitement. "Meow, meow," she chirps, her voice echoing off the stone walls. The boy points ahead, shouting, "Princess." This way, Albria keeps pace, her eyes wide with a mix of frustration and relief. "I get it already," she snaps, trying to keep up with their frantic energy. They skid to a halt before a figure standing with their back turned. A hand gestures sharply. Here, Albria blinks, her brow furrowing. "Huh?" They stand before a solid brick wall, the path ending abruptly. "Here?" Albria asks, her voice trailing off. The figure beside her shakes their head. "It's a dead end." Mill giggles, clutching her doll as she reveals the secret. "How you say?" That's where this comes in. The cat-eared villager steps forward, "Do it like this," while Yodo warns her to be careful. Albria stares in shock, her eyes wide. A hand presses against the brick wall, BWOOM, the surface rippling violently. She reaches out to touch the barrier herself, gasping, "It's the illusion spell Phantom." "But it feels real," she turns back to Mill. "Oh, Mill," Mill smiles, explaining, "Anyway, this is Yodo's barrier." "Come on, princess." Albria grits her teeth, eyes squeezed shut as she pushes against the invisible wall, the vibration humming around her head. Light shatters the illusion, revealing a pair of ornate doors standing wide open. An eye opens wide, catching the sudden glow of the hidden entrance. Behind the threshold, Mill gasps, clutching her doll, while the cat-eared villager throws her arms up in victory. The blonde boy turns with a bright smile, inviting her forward. "Come on, let's go inside." Albria stands frozen, mouth agape, the creak of the heavy doors echoing in her stunned silence. This is the Duke's armory. Racks of gleaming blades and spears line the walls. It's like a museum. Albria's eyes widen at the sheer collection, her excitement spilling over. "Well, where did he get all these?" The children murmur their own wow. A warning sign hangs nearby, catching the eye. "Handle with caution," then a dark, strange katana sits on the rack. "What's this strange katana?" One of them hesitates, wary of the dark metal. "I think I'll leave it alone," Albria points toward the heavy gear. "The shields are over here." Isn't it amazing how many different kinds there are? The girls marvel at the wall of shields, their voices trembling with awe. The other nods, explaining that the Duke has been collecting them forever. A collective gasp ripples through the room as they take it all in. The blonde boy chimes in, explaining that while they don't get to come here very often, they make sure to clean the weapons whenever they do. A brief pause hangs in the air, marked by a quiet "now then." Albria steps forward, a thoughtful smile playing on her lips. The Duke had told her she could pick whichever shield she liked, but now that she's here, the choice is paralyzing. She doesn't know which one to choose. Her gaze lands on a specific piece, and she recognizes the design immediately. This is similar to the kite shields I trained with when I became a knight. The recognition hits her like a lightning bolt. She throws her head back and lets out a deafening scream of pure excitement. Ahhh, the cat-eared villager jumps, confused by the sudden outburst. Meows. Over there, the boy points a shaking finger, panic rising as he stammers about a ghost. A ghost? I can't move. Albria moves first, a blur of motion crashing through the air. The hooded figure in the back snaps upright, demanding to know who is there and how they breached the room. A soft, knowing laugh fills the space. Hee, Albria's eyes narrow, locking onto the figure with sudden intensity. Found you, master. Albria snaps into a combat stance, sword leveled at the stranger standing before the weapon racks. The children freeze behind her, eyes wide. Master, the word hangs in the air, trembling with disbelief. The hooded figure doesn't turn, just a shadow against the stone wall. Then a voice breaks the silence, smooth and knowing. Yeah, this is perfect. A smirk ripples through the darkness, the weight of the moment settling heavy on the room. A child shrieks the princess's name, but Albria demands the stranger's identity, her sword trembling in the dim light. The hooded figure breaks the silence with a casual hey, fingers gripping the fabric before yanking it down. The mask falls away to reveal a pale, grinning face with wide, unblinking eyes. Look, that me? Albria freezes, sword trembling in her grip as she stares at the revealed face. A single exclamation mark hangs in the air behind her. The master stands calm, but the air vibrates with a sudden, heavy rhythm. Badump, a dark pull takes hold. I want him, Albria thinks, the words surfacing unbidden. What I need him, the urge tightens. Then the view snaps to her face, eyes blown wide. I want to devour him, the thought crashes through her, violent and absolute. What is this feeling? Albria stumbles backward, her sword clattering to the stone floor as her legs give out. She can't move, can't think, can't speak. The children scream her name in the background, but she's trapped in her own head, her face burning with a heat that has nothing to do with the air. She tries to insist it's an illusion, to deny the pull that's dragging her forward, but the words die in her throat. The master steps closer, his voice smooth and knowing. He laughs, a low, amused sound that vibrates through the room. He grabs her chin, forcing her to look up at him, his smile widening as he sees the flush on her cheeks. He calls her an innocent maiden, but his tone suggests he knows better. He leans in, his eyes gleaming with mischief. You still have it in you to glare at me, he says, his voice dropping to a whisper. Just as a princess knight should. Albria tries to glare back, but her mouth hangs open, her breath hitching in her chest. He laughs again, a soft, teasing chuckle that echoes in the silence. Can't even speak anymore. The master's fingers dig into Albria's chin, forcing her gaze up as he whispers the truth she's trying to deny. His hand moves with a sharp rush of air, pressing hard against her jaw. You're fighting the urge to pin me down, aren't you? He pulls back slightly, the fabric rustling as he tests her resolve. Now, let's see how long you'll last. Albria crumbles to her knees, sweat slicking her skin as her mind fractures under the weight of the spell. Broken laughter spills from her lips, he. Who are you? The master stands tall, arms crossed, completely unbothered by her confusion. You want to know my names? Does it really matter? He leans in close, his grin sharp and dangerous. How about I show you pleasure so great you forget all about being a stupid knight? Silence hangs heavy in the air as Albria stands frozen, her mind reeling from the sudden spell. She stammers, asking what is going on, her voice trembling with confusion. The master leans back, explaining that he just cast a really powerful charm spell on her. Albria blinks, caught off guard, asking what he means. The master recoils, his eyes widening as he notices her reaction, wondering if he heard her correctly. His voice cracks as he asks what she means, a nervous eek slipping out. Albria stomps forward, the ground cracking beneath her feet as energy crackles around her. She demands to know what he just said, her voice sharp and commanding. The master wobbles on his feet, caught between the spell's effect and her sudden aggression. Albria's eye snaps open, a glare burning with sudden icy clarity. You are the charm snaps. She lunges, fist cocked back with explosive force. The master doesn't even have time to brace himself before he's airborne, sent flying backward by the impact. Insolent fool, Albria screams, her voice cracking with fury as she drives the attack home. The master stumbles to his feet, groaning under the weight of the impact. Ow ow, OWWWs. He tests his limbs, relief washing over him. I can move now. A villager flinches at the noise, eyes wide. A stupid night. The master tries to smooth the tension, his voice light. I may be dumb. Albria gasps, startled. Leak. She tightens her grip on his collar, trembling with righteous fury. KNIGHTS proudly protect the kingdom's peace. Her voice cracks as she screams, GAAH. The master's eyes gleam in the shadows, his tone hardening. I won't allow you to mock them. Albria screams, a torrent of terror and fury erupting from her throat. WAAH, she clutches her own face, realizing the horror of her own expression. That glare is terrifying, scary. Scary, scary, scary. The master finishes his sentence about knights training to defend the kingdom, his voice calm amidst the storm. Albria seizes the moment, shouting, You dare mock their passion. The master crumbles, apologizing profusely as he tumbles backward. I'm sorry. I got carried away. He drops something from his hand, landing hard against the wall. He coughs, the impact rattling his chest. You don't make sense. Aren't you supposed to be a knight? The master screams, panic driving his words. He bolts, but Albria yells for him to stop. He crashes hard into the brick wall, the impact shaking the room. A boy nearby grins, teasing that the master is the real berserker. Albria seethes, snapping back at the insult. She locks eyes on him, her voice dropping to a cold demand. Now, what do you want with me? A hand brushes against the stone, the friction sharp in the sudden quiet. What do you mean? The master snaps, his voice tight. Touched you, he presses, the question hanging heavy. Behind him, the children freeze. Big sis, shield, they whisper, the words catching in the silence. The blonde boy steps forward, shouting over the tension. I guess Big Sis Yodo's that much cooler than me, huh? I'm just a lame shield. He forces a laugh, but the master freezes. He leans closer, the hood shifting as recognition dawns. Wait, are you? The master's voice drops, disbelief cracking through. The legendary shield Egmort. Gasps ripple through the crowd as eyes lock onto the massive shield. The one who fought the demon lord alongside Lord Alberzite, someone shouts. One of the demonic armaments, the realization hits hard. A heavy crash echoes as the master stumbles into view, groaning. Yodo stands nearby, hands on hips. Took you long enough, she calls out. Egmort, the blonde boy, steps forward with a sheepish expression. I only made a move because I thought. You were someone who could wield me, he admits, explaining his earlier action. Yodo turns to the master, a teasing grin on her face. And ended up falling for a succubus's trap, she points a finger. They say the two of you chased after a woman. Egmort recoils, turning his back to hide his blush. That's way exaggerated, he protests. Is that what they say about me now? Yodo rubs her temples, a weary sigh escaping her lips as she stares at the chaos. I can't believe this. Beside her, the small blonde boy throws his arms wide, indignant. I'm a hero. How could you hit me? Yodo cuts him off, shaking her head. Anyway. That aside, the boy steps forward, pointing a finger with a confident grin. How about you and me form a pact? Yodo blinks, caught off guard. A pact, Egmort nods, the weight of the offer settling between them. Yep. A demonic armament pact. He raises a hand, explaining the stakes. Demonic armaments have unique powers. Only usable by their wielders. Egmort stands tall, white cloak billowing, and drops a bombshell with a grin that says he knows exactly what he's doing. I'll be all yours if you'll take me. He leans back, a smug expression plastered across his face as he waits for the reaction. Yodo blinks, her hand hovering near her hip as she eyes the boy who just claimed to be a legendary shield. What's the catch? She demands, suspicion sharp in her voice. Egmort extends a hand, the gesture open and inviting. Then you're free to use my power as you like. He leans in, eyes crinkling with mirth, and laughs out loud. Well, you might become a fiend. Yodo swings her book down with a sharp asterisk bonk, warning the blonde boy that she'll hit him again if he's still half asleep. Egmort scrambles back, stammering that there's no violence needed, then pleads with desperate eyes. He shouts that she must want to get stronger, asking what harm could come of it. The scene shifts to the courtyard where Yodo stands with Albria and the cat-eared villager while Egmort drops to his knees. He explains the stakes, his voice cracking with urgency. He needs to see the outside world or else he'll run out of mana and turn into scrap iron. Yodo sighs, her patience wearing thin as she mutters a weary plea. The children are shooed off to the armory, leaving Yodo to deal with the chaos. She drags Egmort by the collar, the boy screaming that he's begging for a pact and needs help. Yodo doesn't flinch, asking why she'd commit to an incubus and threatening to have the Duke seal him again. Egmort collapses on the ground, whining about waking up after so long, but Yodo's patience is gone. Over by the side, the master sobs nearby, muttering about wanting to flirt with women and build the ultimate harem. Yodo hears the rant and snaps, calling him a little. The master turns, sensing an alert just as the tension spikes. The white-haired figure locks eyes with Albria, the air suddenly thick with accusation. Princess Knight, Albria shakes her head, voice sharp. No, just the children, the figure presses harder, eyes narrowing. Did you happen to bring any heavily armored individuals with you? Albria blinks, confused. I came to the village by myself anyway, the white-haired figure insists. Albria stammers, the mood shifts instantly. A hooded figure in the foreground steps forward, voice low and urgent. We're surrounded, Albria recoils, sweat beading on her brow. What are you talking about? The white-haired figure's expression darkens, a grim realization settling over them. Well, we might be in trouble. Albria's eyes widen, the weight of the threat sinking in as the silence stretches heavy and cold. A deafening screech shatters the air as a massive blade tears across the ground. Everyone get back, the shout rings out, urgent and desperate. Albria and the children stumble, eyes wide with shock as debris rains down around them. The weapon slides relentlessly forward, grinding against the stone. The shockwave ripples outward, forcing everyone to scatter for cover. A horrified scream tears through the air as the white-haired figure realizes the nightmare. Black Knights. Armored figures descend on the courtyard, weapons drawn, closing in on Albria and the children. Albria shoves the child behind her, voice sharp with command as she stands between them and the threat. The child stammers a shaky agreement, eyes wide with fear. A knight in dark armor demands their identity, asking what unit they belong to. Albria refuses to back down, demanding they identify themselves first. We've given up our names. The Black Knights speak first, their voices stripped of identity. Even our very words are tainted. Steel clinks and blades hum as stone pillars loom over the courtyard, closing in on Albria and the children. For the sake of our lord, we must take your life. A helmeted warrior lends in, his voice cutting through the tension. But know this, the name drops like a death sentence. The 6th Princess Albria van Bylega. Chapter 10 bursts onto the scene with the title, It Was No Ordinary Village, stamped over a courtyard full of villagers. A voice calls out, "All right, Gilmius," before a bearded man lends in, demanding, "What are you planning?" Out with it, a hand presses against a chest, feeling the rhythm throb with a heavy beat. Ow, someone winces. Then a wide-brimmed hat tilts back to reveal a grinning face. He flashes a peace sign declaring good as new. He waves to the gathered crowd, "Hello there, friends, and long time no see." The impatient villager demands answers, his hand raised in a sharp gesture. The demon tries to soothe him, calling him friend, but the villager isn't having it. He pushes for the truth, insisting they get straight to the important part. The demon finally drops the bombshell, Princess Albria is in danger. The scene cuts to Albria, surrounded by a storm of blades, her expression hardening as the threat closes in. Knights under the 3rd Prince's command are targeting her, and the village is no longer safe. "What should we do, Duke?" a villager shouts, panic rising in his voice. Duke grimaces, the weight of the threat settling heavy. "Not good." Albria went to the castle with the children. He snaps back at the crowd. "I said to calm down, didn't I?" From the sidelines, the demon steps forward, hat brim casting a shadow over his confident grin. He spreads his arms, dismissing the fear. No one in the kingdom can match Princess Albria's skill with the sword. On top of that, she has an ace up her sleeve. He leans in, eyes gleaming. "I assume you all witnessed the light of the royal family's magic sword." A villager hesitates. "An ace," the demon nods, pointing a finger skyward with a smug flourish. "Indeed," he declares the name of the move with a booming voice. "It's certainly capable of blowing away an entire squad of heavily armored knights." Magic sword, sacred punishment. The demon raises a hand, demanding silence from the gathered villagers. "You see," he stammers, the crowd pressing for answers. "The thing is, what's the matter?" the maid asks. "I broke her sword," the maid says it with a bright smile. "I think my ears got clogged from being tired up so long." The demon bows to Yodo, trying to explain why he didn't hear it. "What did you just say?" Yodo asks. "Broke," the realization hits. The maid beams, clutching the shattered hilt of the holy sword like a precious trophy. "I broke it," she chirps, her smile bright and unbothered. "Now it's been reborn as my little sister here." The words hang in the air, heavy and absurd. The demon freezes, his mouth gaping open in stunned silence. The maid cradles the shattered hilt like a doll, cooing over the wood grain as if it were smooth skin. Villagers scream in horror at the desecration of the royal family's sword, Karnwanan. A villager praises her with a good girl, but the maid claims the broken weapon is now her precious little sister, while the duke complains about the sudden shortness. The realization hits the duke that the princess is now defenseless without her magic sword. The maid bolts, leaving the duke frozen in shock before he chases after her, shouting that this is bad and demanding she speed up. The maid stands beside the beastman Blut, urging him that they need to hurry. The demon calls out the beastman's name, drawing his attention. Blut asks if the demon can handle things here while they go, but the demon waves off the worry with a confident grin. He lifts the maid into his arms, wings spreading wide as he takes flight over the village rooftops. The maid clings to him, trusting him to see this through. The stone walls of the village stand silent before the storm. A subordinate reports to the vice commander that all squads are in position. The order is confirmed with a single word. A blade flashes in the air with a sharp ring, and the command to advance echoes. Steel clatters and heavy boots stomp as the knights surge forward, a wall of steel and fury. They roar as they stampede across the ground, their mission clear. This village harbors the sixth princess, an obstacle to their lord's revival. There will be no mercy. Leave no one alive. A wooden signpost looms, warning that beyond this point lies a labyrinth to be faced at their own peril. Blades shatter against an earth wall, useless against the solid barrier as the knights shout in frustration. A wood golem rises from the dust, its movements unnatural and unpredictable. Panic spreads as the advance squads begin to retreat. The vice commander roars in disbelief, asking what is wrong with this village as chaos erupts around him. "Damn it!" Max crouches on the rooftop, spyglass pressed to his eye, watching the enemy surge forward. "They're really going at it," he mutters, the tension thick in the air. "Now's as good a time as ever." Below, villagers scramble up the bell tower, hauling themselves up the stone with grunts of effort. They should get serious and launch an all-out attack now. A hand waves from the street below, signaling the green light. High above, Max hangs upside down, glasses gleaming in the light. "Time for us to move to the next stage too." "Porians." Max hangs upside down from the rooftop, his glasses gleaming as he calls out to the woman standing before him. "Porians." The name echoes in the silence, unanswered for a moment. He waves his hands frantically, asking if she's there, if her back hurts from standing so long. "Stiff shoulders." She turns, her expression calm, her elf ears twitching slightly. "No, nothing like that," she says, her voice cutting through the tension. "She's just wondering about Gilmius." "Gilmius?" Max freezes, the name hitting him like a shockwave. Porian lines in, her voice low and sharp as she notes the man's concern for Albria seemed genuine. The demon tilts his head, glasses catching the light, and presses her on whether that was the whole story. He asks if she doesn't find it odd, his tone turning suspicious. He wonders if the man in question is still hiding something, his hand tightening on his chin. Porian sighs, a small amused smile playing on her lips as she remarks that he rarely makes such a serious face. She admits it isn't often she sees him like this, her eyes gleaming with a mix of curiosity and mischief. She brushes off his worry, declaring that it's fine. With a confident chuckle, she reveals her true intent. She's going to make a lot of money today. The mood shifts as she looks past him, her expression turning soft and intimate. She leans closer, whispering the words that hang heavy in the air. "You've got a front row seat." "Father, don't worry, I got your back," the demon promises, his hand resting on Porian's shoulder. "Oh, but leave them their swords." Sure, Porian agrees, her voice light. She draws a deep breath, the air trembling around her as the moment stretches tight. The demon watches as she stands in the center of the wooden hall, glowing faintly. "This is my secret," she whispers, the words hanging heavy. "It is an abyss, a labyrinth, and the underworld. I command, I inscribe." The knight's voice cuts through the air, cold and final. "And I am lost in the labyrinth." The chant builds, a dark incantation rising from the ranks. "The afterlife seeks your silver coins, and you stand before it. Open the gates to the underworld." Below, soldiers scramble through the dust, blades drawn. Where is the Pharaoh? Where is the ancestral call? They search frantically, panic rising in their throats. A woman's voice drifts through the chaos, soft yet heavy with power. Drifting and flowing, you arrive at the tower from which there is no return. The knights stop, eyes locking onto the stone structure. "There they are," one shouts, pointing. "In the bell tower." The vice commander sneers at the uninvited guests, calling their big talk out of place for country bumpkins who thought they could take out his advanced squads. His men raise crossbows, the metal clicking into place as they aim at the intruders. A knight shouts that the mage behind the enemy is casting a spell, panic flickering in his voice. The vice commander dismisses the threat with a cold command to fire. Bolts fly through the air, striking the defenders, but the vice commander doesn't care if they survive. He orders the attack to continue, his voice cutting through the chaos as the knights press their advantage. Bolts scream through the air, streaking toward the bell tower as the knights unleash their assault. Max holds his ground amidst the chaos, spiky hair catching the light as the barrage closes in. "Though, guess there's no talking things out," a voice from the ranks cuts in, "after we made fools of you." "Figures you'd be mad." Steel whizzes past him, a blur of sound that fills the space. "All right, direct hit," the vice commander roars, signaling the volley. Arrows scream through the air, streaking toward the bell tower with a sharp *HRMPH* of impact. But they don't strike stone. A gloved hand snatches the bundle mid-flight, fingers locking tight around the shafts. "This takes me back." The knights below freeze, the battlefield plunging into stunned silence. One soldier stammers, eyes wide. "MT. Zyrimt. Are you an ex-monk? Identify yourself." The grip tightens further. "I used to practice catching arrows all the time on MT." Irimt, Max leans over the balcony railing, glasses glinting in the dust. "Now then, your customers are here, Porian." The vice commander roars for another volley, his men frantically reloading to aim directly for Porian. Max leans into the chaos, a smirk playing on his lips as he reminds them they missed the warning sign. Beyond this point, the ground shifts into a labyrinth. Porian swings her blade, shouting "Labyrinth me" as the spell detonates. The earth explodes, swallowing the soldiers in a surge of magic and stone. Blinding brilliance erupts overhead, the word shine echoing through the sky as knights halt mid-advance, heads tilting back in shock. "What the?" Soft particles drift down, fluttering through the air like snowflakes caught in a breeze. Soldiers squint, watching the glowing flakes land on their armor. Snow made of light, a helmet clatters to the ground with a soft plip. One soldier freezes, eyes wide, a confused slipping out. He grabs at his head, panic rising as his protection vanishes. "What's going on, my helmet?" Panic shatters the battlefield as the glowing snowflakes settle. A soldier stares at his bare hands, screaming that his armor is gone. His comrade realizes his crossbow has vanished too, the light stripping them of every piece of equipment. They shout warnings not to touch the light, but the damage is done. Up on the balcony, Max leans casually against the railing, glasses glinting in the dust. He asks the enemy what they're going to do, reminding them he left their swords on purpose. A beastman soldier below growls in frustration, a sharp escaping his lips. Max presses the advantage, ordering them to lay down their blades and surrender. The beastman roars in fury, cursing the demon as he struggles against the magical suppression. Nevertheless, "We can't turn back," a subordinate shouts, his resolve hardening against the odds. "But we remain knights. We might have given up our names," the vice commander answers, his back to the enemy, sword raised high. He turns to his men, a feral grin splitting his face. "We've been prepared from the very beginning. To give up our lives to repay our lord." He screams the order, the air trembling with his fury. "There is no retreat. We can only push forward," the soldiers roar in unison, charging into the dust. But the vice commander's eyes narrow as he watches the enemy's stillness. The realization sinks in like a stone. They aren't playing around. Seems like there's more to this than we thought. "Draw your blades," the beastman commander bellows, steel flashing in the dust. Max leaps into the chaos unfazed. He declares he won't ask for reasons, no matter the situation, because there is no justification for trying to take their lives. He closes the distance and strikes. Secret technique, Phantom Dragon's Roaring Blossom. Time to cool your heads. A roar of impact erupts as the technique lands. The castle looms in the distance, silent and indifferent. "What are you after?" Albria demands, her sword raised against the dust. "There's nothing to be gained from killing me," the vice commander counters, his voice steady amidst the wreckage. Debris litters the courtyard where the fight just ended. "But I'd like to keep the pointless chatter to a minimum," the knight adds, raising a gloved hand. "There is for us." Steel flashes as the hooded vice commander lunges, Albria parrying the blow with a sharp clash. She shouts to the children, ordering them to the armory where they'll be safe from the fighting. The vice commander pins her, his sword blocking hers as he looms over her. A young boy watches the clash in horror as the metal rings. The children scramble up the stairs, calling out to each other as a stone crashes nearby. Albria realizes the trap. The vice commander tells her there's no escape, their exits cut off. She acknowledges their thoroughness. Albria shouts back over the chaos, asking Max to take care of the kids. A slash cuts through the air as the vice commander lunges, but the hooded commander spots the children scrambling up the stairs and roars at them to stop. Max sweats, admitting he can't use his full power without a pact. He casts a small con shield anyway, glowing bright against the dust to protect the children. Albria accepts the compromise, telling him to hold on until the Duke arrives. Arrows scream through the air, raining down on the courtyard. Albria looks up, mouth open in a shout as the projectiles descend. They strike with a deafening boom, explosions of dust and light erupting around the group. Albria points a finger at the hooded figure, her voice cutting through the chaos. "How dare you? I'm the one you're after," the vice commander ignores the taunt, his hand closing over a glowing magical device. "We will use every tool at our disposal." He admits the path they walk is unjust, but insists all they do is for their lord. Albria grits her teeth, the weight of the situation pressing down. "Damn it," she dashes forward, sword drawn, closing the distance. Steel rings as blades collide, Albria skidding back as the force of the blow drives her into the dust. Recognition strikes her like a physical blow, her eyes locking onto the enemy's cloak. "Are you brothers knights?" she gasps, staring at the insignia on their armor. "That emblem," a sword drops from a soldier's hand, clattering against the stone. Albria turns to the hooded commander, her voice cracking with disbelief. "The third prince would never order such a thing. Why are you doing this?" She raises her blade again, desperation sharpening her accusation. "Are you trying to tarnish his reputation while he's ill?" A sharp no cuts through the tension. The vice commander steps forward, his masked face a void of certainty. "It is all for his sake." The vice commander speaks from the shadows, laying out the cost. A forbidden resurrection spell demands sacrifice. If their lord is ever to open his eyes again, they must offer up both their own tainted souls and the head of his cherished sister. Albria stands frozen, the realization hitting her like a physical blow. If what he is saying is true, then her brother is already dead. A scream tears through the air as Albria recoils in horror, her face contorted in agony. The vice commander roars back, his blade raised, demanding an end to the hesitation. He barks the requirements of the dark magic like a war drum, shouting about sacrifices and souls, about forbidden spells that demand blood. But before the knight can finish his grim litany, a voice cuts through the tension from the shadows. Porian the witch steps forward with a knowing smile, revealing the true location of the power they seek. The spell they fear isn't just a rumor, it is sealed deep within the depths of Porian's own labyrinth. However, sixth princess. The vice commander begins, his voice cutting through the tension. Albria doesn't flinch. What would you say if I happen to have it? She steps forward, sword ready. The forbidden scroll is said to have been sealed by the labyrinth witch. The vice commander's hand reaches out. That's right. A glowing scroll materializes on the magical circle. Right here. Albria asks, her eyes widening.